Welcome. Tonight, we explore the life and mysteries of Master Yoda, his history, his species, and the wisdom that shaped the Jedi Order. This compilation brings all of Yoda's lore into one calm journey to help you unwind. Before we begin, feel free to comment where you're watching from. I always enjoy seeing who's here with us. Now, relax, and let's begin. Grandmaster Yoda wasn't always the greatest Jedi Master in the Order's history. Once, he was just a mysterious being belonging to an equally mysterious species. Yoda's origins remain one of the galaxy's undocumented secrets. Born in 896 BBY, he belonged to an ancient species that can't be found on any galactic record. Even the vast Jedi archives, which held mountains of databanks of knowledge, contain no information about his species nor his homeworld. They are publicly known only as Yoda's species. On top of that, Yoda himself never spoke of his background. What's even more mysterious is that the very few details that are known about them only provide more questions than answers. There are only 3 known things about their kind in canon stories. For one, they are exceedingly rare, with only 3 of them ever recorded in the galaxy. 2, all of them have incredibly long lifespans, with Yoda's spanning almost 1,000 years. What's most remarkable, however, is the last known fact about them. All are shown to have extraordinarily strong connections with the Force. As such, Yoda was born with this incredible gift. Naturally, this gift led him straight to the Jedi Order. Beyond these few details, however, the rest of Yoda's early years remain a mystery. At least, that is how the story is told in canon. That's why I've gone through Legends material, comic books, novels, and even magazines to give you a more detailed account of Yoda's young life. Learning the ways of the Force. According to Legends sources, Yoda always wanted to reach greater heights as a young being. One day, he and a human friend left their isolated homeworld on a simple starship, seeking adventure and a new life among the stars. But as they were traveling through space, their journey took a dangerous turn when their ship was struck by an asteroid. They sent a distress signal, but received no responses. Their support systems and supplies ran dangerously low after spending days drifting through space. Finally, their sensors found a nearby star system that was close enough for their ship's dwindling power. With nothing but a determination to survive, they powered up their crumbling ship before crash landing on a swampy planet. They weren't out of the woods yet. While they were no longer stranded in space, they were castaways on a strange planet with no means of getting off. But then, just when all hope seemed lost, they were discovered by a Hysalrian, a massive sentient serpentine. Not only would he save their lives, he would also change their fates. He introduced himself as Nakata Del Gormo, a Jedi Master. Upon rescuing the pair, he sensed the Force flowing through both of them. This was a revelation to both Yoda and his human companion, who were both unaware of their latent gifts. Therefore, Master Del Gormo took them as his apprentices, training them in the ways of the Jedi right there on that remote world. Eventually, a Republic starship finally detected their old distress signal. It arrived just in time for their training with Master Del Gormo to be completed. With that, they bid their master farewell and made their way to Coruscant. There, Yoda continued training at the Jedi Temple, where he impressed the Masters with his natural ability and deep connection to the Force. What follows next is strictly canon material. That said, whether you follow the canon stories or the tales from Legends, one fact remains constant. Yoda's rise through the Jedi ranks was astonishing. His connection to the Force and wisdom grew with each passing decade in the Order. At 100 years old, he began training Padawan learners, starting a teaching legacy that would span 8 centuries. Over his lifetime, it is believed that he has trained over 20,000 Jedi, a feat no other master in history has ever achieved. As centuries passed, he produced generation after generation of exceptional Jedi Knights. Incidentally, he trained many of these students during an age known for prosperity and peace. Keeping the peace. During the High Republic era, roughly 500 to 100 BBY, Yoda had already become a living legend and had earned a seat on the Jedi High Council. Best of all, he had ascended to the rank of Grand Master, the ultimate recognition that he stood taller among the most powerful and wise Jedi. And while the High Republic era was known for being a golden age of peace and expansion, there were still conflicts scattered across the galaxy. Many of these conflicts would be ended by Yoda himself. In 382 BBY, Yoda played a crucial role in ending a deadly battle with the Path of the Open Hand. They were a fanatical cult that despised the Jedi and sought to destroy anyone who used the Force. In a confrontation that became known as the Night of Sorrow, the Path unleashed horrifying creatures called the Nameless, beings that could drain the Force from living beings. Yoda fought alongside other Jedi Masters to defeat the Path. After a long and difficult battle, the Jedi were successful against the Path of the Open Hand. But in the aftermath, Yoda recognized how the Nameless continued to bring fear even to experienced Jedi. Therefore, Yoda ordered that all knowledge of these creatures be kept secret, hidden even from the Jedi archives. He believed that fear of the Nameless would only weaken the Order. Fear, after all, leads to the dark side. This choice, born from protective instinct, meant future generations of Jedi would remain unaware of this terrifying creature. Unfortunately, it also meant they had no knowledge of this looming threat and how to overcome it should it return. 149 years later, Yoda felt the Force push him towards a different path. He felt that the Force was calling him to directly mentor young Padawans in the field. In response, he took a sabbatical from the Jedi Council. Instead of leading at the Jedi Grand Temple on Coruscant, he chose to serve aboard the Padawan academic cruiser Starhopper. As he would later realize, this wasn't the only reason the Force urged him to leave the temple, because the very year Yoda joined the Starhopper, disaster struck. The great hyperspace disaster sent massive debris chunks hurtling through hyperspace at light speed, threatening to obliterate entire star systems. When the Trimont system faced annihilation from incoming debris, the Starhopper was the only Jedi vessel close enough to respond. Yoda and a fellow Master stayed aboard their ship, using the Force to deflect the largest chunks of wreckage in space. The Padawans rushed down to Trimont 4's surface in rescue shuttles. Unfortunately, the disaster attracted vultures. Anarchic raiders called the Nile arrived to exploit the chaos. The Padawans, unaware of the Nile's underlying motives, sought their help. They urged the new arrivals to use their ships to evacuate civilians. Instead, the raiders attacked, and the Padawans found themselves battling these dangerous marauders on the ground to protect the innocent. When the fighting intensified, Yoda personally intervened. In one dramatic moment, he leapt in front of a massive plasma projectile, slicing it apart mid-air with his lightsaber to save his students. During the battle, a local Force-sensitive girl named Zeen Marala revealed her abilities by helping the Jedi. But her friend, a young boy named Crix Camerat, was captured by the Nile. Against his students' protests, Yoda boarded the Nile ship alone to rescue the boy. However, he discovered something else inside, a strange, glowing purple artifact. He thought nothing of this artifact and proceeded with the rescue. He would later find out that this artifact was much more dangerous than it looked, and that he should have taken it from the Nile when he had the chance. The rescue would go sideways when Crix, feeling betrayed by Zeen's alliance with the Jedi, alerted the Nile to Yoda's presence. Yoda escaped with the help of an unlikely ally, Zeen's pet Cham Cham, who devoured several Nile limbs during the scuffle. Sadly, Crix got left behind, with Yoda realizing the young boy did not want to be rescued in the first place. Following these events, Yoda attended the dedication of Starlight Beacon, a massive Jedi space station meant to be a symbol of hope in the Outer Rim. But he wasn't ready to return to the Council yet. His mission with the Padawans wasn't finished. The Force still had plans for him. Then, 2 years after joining the Starhopper, an event happened that became one of the greatest mysteries of Yoda's life. After a battle in the Bright Jewel system, the Starhopper crew received a distress signal from the junk moon Quanxi. There, they discovered a Nile base, and Yoda encountered the man named Elder Tromac, someone he had met decades earlier during the Path of the Open Hand conflict. Tromac, once a member of the Path, now hated the Nile for imprisoning him. He revealed that the Nile were seeking the second half of the mysterious artifact, the same type Yoda had seen on Marchion Ro's ship. He also revealed the true purpose of these artifacts. They were control rods used to control the Nameless. What's worse, they already held one half of it. Realizing the chaos that could be unleashed should both rods reunite, Tromak begged Yoda to help him prevent the Nile from acquiring it. He also insisted on absolute secrecy, refusing to even let the Master bring a comlink. Agreeing that the Nile can't be allowed to hold such power, Yoda departed with Tromak for the planet Vrant Tarnum, where the second half was hidden. Yoda sent the final message to his fellow Jedi, explicitly ordering them not to follow him. This would be an ominous indication of what would follow. Just as Yoda and Tromak were approaching the planet, their shuttle was shot down. The Nile ambushed them and seized the artifact fragment. Their mission had failed, and the Nile acquired the second half of the nameless control rod. To make matters even worse, Grandmaster Yoda suddenly went missing. With no word or signs of him, Yoda's name was added to the list of Jedi presumed dead. His absence devastated those who knew him, and the galaxy felt his absence strongly in the impending battle. Then, in 230 BBY, a battle on Corellia occurred simultaneously with the fall of Starlight Beacon. As Masters Kantam Sai and Comac Vetus fought overwhelming Nile forces on Coronet City, a hooded figure suddenly appeared. Using the Force, this mysterious Jedi halted a massive stolen starship the Nile were launching. Victory was won, all thanks to this mysterious figure, who appeared at the last minute from out of nowhere. Then, when he lowered his hood, he revealed himself as the missing Grand Master. Yoda had returned, and he wasn't alone. With him was Aslan Rel, a former Jedi who had survived the Night of Sorrow a century earlier. Though Rel had descended into madness studying the Nameless, Yoda brought him along for his crucial knowledge about defeating these creatures. What exactly happened during Yoda's lost year remains a mystery, and not even he offered any explanation for his sudden year-long absence. Resurgence of the Sith. For decades to come, Yoda continued to train Jedi younglings, and among all of Yoda's students, few would affect his life and the galaxy's fate more than Count Dooku of Sereno. Born into nobility around 102 BBY, the young Force-sensitive Dooku was brought to the Jedi Temple as an infant to learn the ways of the Jedi. Eventually, Dooku became Yoda's Padawan. Under the Grand Master's direct tutelage, he grew into one of the Order's most skilled members. Yoda found Dooku to be brilliant, charismatic, and incredibly strong in the Force, but also proud and headstrong. These traits made him a powerful Jedi, but they also were the very seeds of his eventual downfall. As time passed, Dooku eventually became a Jedi Master himself. He took on Qui-Gon Jinn as his Padawan and earned great respect within the Order. But over the decades, he grew disillusioned with the Republic's corruption and the Jedi's role as its indifferent servants. Then, Dooku made a decision that shocked everyone. He left the Jedi Order. The scene of his departure was heartbreaking. As Dooku left the Order to reclaim his title as Count of Sereno, Yoda looked on as he hoped he would one day return to the Order. While heartbroken, Yoda had to go on as Master of the Order. Around 40 BBY, Yoda embarked on a hidden mission that would become known as his Secret War. While on Botor with Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi, he felt a distant call through the Force. Following this mysterious pull, Yoda traveled alone to the fog-shrouded world of Vagadar Prime. Child warriors attacked him the moment he landed. Yoda defended himself carefully, then surrendered peacefully to show he meant no harm. The children realized he must have heard their sky scream, a force-powered cry for help that only someone with incredible power could perceive across the stars. In their settlement called Mucktown, Yoda discovered a tragic truth. Vagadar Prime's people once lived in harmony near the Blue Mountains, towering peaks of living stone that channeled the Force. But greed for the mountain's power sparked a devastating war that destroyed all but one peak. The survivors split into two warring tribes, the Mud Dwellers and the Rockhawkers. Now, only children remained. Their parents had vanished years ago while searching for peace. The Rockhawkers challenged Yoda to find the heart of the mountain, deep within dangerous caverns. Venturing inside, he discovered the missing parents living as hermits, consumed by shame for abandoning their children to endless war. Deeper still, Yoda met Garrow, a boy cast out for being weak. Yet the Grandmaster sensed great Force potential in him. Through meditation with Garrow, Yoda made a startling discovery. The mountains themselves were alive. ancient giants of living stone driven underground long ago. When Garrow revealed this secret to his tribe, they used the dark side to awaken the Great Mountain in anger. The colossal being rose from the earth, ready to destroy everything in its rage. Yoda stood alone against the Titan, holding back its fury with the Force. His resistance bought time for the Mud Dwellers to awaken other stone giants through prayer. Together, they subdued the enraged mountain. As young Garrow charged forward to continue the battle, Yoda implored him to let go of his hate. Faced with the Jedi's compassion, Garrow dropped his weapon. The war was over. Parents reunited with their children. Some families chose to leave Vagadar Prime entirely, seeking new lives among the stars. Yoda departed quietly, choosing not to reveal certain truths about the dark side's role in the conflict. Unfortunately, the nature of the dark side wouldn't remain hidden for long. By 32 BBY, the Galactic Republic was entering its final twilight. At roughly 864 years old, Yoda sat as the sole Grandmaster of the Jedi Order, the oldest and wisest member of the High Council. When the Trade Federation blockaded and then invaded the peaceful planet of Naboo, it set in motion events that would destroy the very order Yoda spent centuries protecting. In hopes of gathering more information, the Council sent Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi to investigate, and they returned with shocking news. Qui-Gon had encountered a mysterious dark warrior wielding a red lightsaber, clear evidence that the Sith had returned after 1,000 years of supposed extinction. But that wasn't the only shocking thing Qui-Gon brought with him. He had also presented to the Council a 9-year-old, a former slave from Tatooine, Anakin Skywalker. Even more controversial was Qui-Gon's reasoning for bringing the boy. He believed he was the chosen one of ancient prophecy, the one who could bring balance to the Force. When the Council tested young Anakin, they found his Force potential was off the charts. His midichlorian count was higher than any Jedi ever recorded, even higher than that of Grandmaster Yoda. But aside from potential, Yoda sensed something else in the boy: deep fear, anger, and dangerous attachment. The Council, following Yoda's judgment, initially refused to allow Anakin's training. He was too old, too attached to his past, too dangerous. It was a decision Qui-Gon couldn't accept, as he remained absolutely convinced of the boy's destiny. However, the Fates had a different plan for the young Skywalker. During the Battle of Naboo, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan faced the Sith warrior once more, named Darth Maul. Unfortunately, the double-bladed saber-wielding Sith proved too much for the Master and Padawan duo. In the end, Qui-Gon lost his life, although his death brought one consolation: it was fuel enough for his young Padawan to defeat the Sith enemy. Honoring Qui-Gon's dying wish, the Council reconsidered, and despite his previous misgivings, Yoda agreed to let Obi-Wan, now a knighted Jedi, train Anakin as his own Padawan. At Qui-Gon's funeral, Yoda and Mace Windu discussed the implications of Maul's appearance. The rule of two stated that a Sith never worked alone. Where there's an apprentice, there's a master. If Maul was the apprentice, then somewhere a Sith master remained hidden. As it turned out, that master hid in plain sight, and he stood among them disguised as the newly elected Chancellor Palpatine. In the decade following the Battle of Naboo, the Republic began to fracture. By 22 BBY, Count Dooku had created a Separatist movement and rallied multiple star systems against the Republic. Yoda watched in horror, as the student he had hoped might one day return to the light had become an enemy of the Republic. Worse than that, Dooku had completely fallen to the dark side of the Force. Adopting the moniker Darth Tyrannus, Dooku had succeeded Darth Maul as Sidious's new apprentice. More troubling still, the Jedi's ability to see the future was failing. In private, Yoda admitted to Mace Windu that their connection to the Force had diminished. The dark side clouded everything, but revealing this weakness to the Senate would only embolden their enemies. The Jedi carried this terrible secret as the crisis turned to war. The Separatist crisis exploded when Obi-Wan, investigating an assassination attempt on Senator Padme Amidala, discovered two shocking revelations. On Kamino, a massive clone army had been secretly commissioned for the Republic. Then, on Geonosis, Count Dooku commanded a vast droid army ready to wage war against the Republic. With conflict inevitable, Chancellor Palpatine was granted emergency powers and authorized the use of the clone army. The Senate made this choice to protect the Republic. Little did they know, this was the first step towards its doom. The Clone Wars. Yoda personally traveled to Kamino to take command of these troops. Leading them into battle went against everything the Jedi stood for, but the alternative was the Republic's destruction. At the Battle of Geonosis, Yoda arrived with clone battalions just in time to rescue Mace Windu and a handful of surviving Jedi from certain death in the Petranaki arena. For the first time in generations, Jedi served as military commanders. The Clone Wars had begun. During the battle's climax, Yoda confronted Count Dooku in his hangar. Master faced former student in a lightsaber duel that showcased both warriors at their peak. Dooku, who made the first move, unleashed force lightning at his old master. Yoda absorbed it with his bare hands and redirected it back. Their lightsaber combat was blindingly fast. After the epic clash, the duel ended in a stalemate. Realizing he couldn't defeat Yoda directly, Dooku created a distraction by endangering the wounded Obi-Wan and Anakin. Yoda chose to save his fellow Jedi rather than pursue Dooku, who escaped to continue leading the Separatists. The Clone Wars transformed the Jedi from peacekeepers into generals, and no one felt this burden more than Yoda. Though he served as a key strategist from the Jedi Temple's war room, he also led troops personally when needed, always emphasizing compassion, even in warfare. One of his most memorable battlefield moments came at Rugosa, where Yoda and just 3 clone troopers were ambushed by an entire Separatist battalion. The mission was to secure an alliance with the Toydarian king, but Asajj Ventress, Dooku's dark assassin, had set a trap. Outnumbered hundreds to 1, Yoda turned the impossible situation into a teaching moment. He learned each clone's name, treated them as individuals rather than numbers. Through clever tactics and inspiration, Yoda's small squad defeated the droid army. When Ventress herself attacked, Yoda disarmed her so effortlessly that she fled rather than continue the fight. Throughout the war, Yoda continued training young Jedi whenever possible. In a particularly insightful move, he assigned Ahsoka Tano as Anakin Skywalker's Padawan. Yoda hoped that teaching would help Anakin learn to let go of his attachments, the very flaw Yoda had sensed in him years earlier. The war also didn't prevent Yoda from bettering himself. As the war dragged on, he began hearing a voice in his head, a voice that was all too familiar, that of Qui-Gon Jinn's. Following his former student's guidance, Yoda secretly left Coruscant on a spiritual journey that would change his view of the Force from then on. First, Qui-Gon led him to Dagobah, a planet saturated with the living Force. In a cave strong with the dark side, Yoda confronted a vision of his own inner darkness, a shadowy version of himself that embodied all his fears and hubris. Only by acknowledging this darkness could he move forward. Next, Yoda traveled to the Wellspring of Life, the birthplace of midichlorians, where he met the 5 priestesses, ancient beings who taught the secret of maintaining consciousness after death. They sent him to Moraband, the ancient Sith homeworld, for his final trial. There, Yoda resisted temptations from 2 Sith lords, Darth Bane and Darth Sidious. Through these trials, Yoda learned the path to immortality, not of the body, but of the spirit, a way to become one with the Force. Though he couldn't prevent the coming darkness, he now knew there was hope beyond it. Yoda also continued to foster good relations with his allies. One good example of this is how he personally defended Kashyyyk during the war. Throughout the centuries, he developed a special bond with the Wookies, the natives of the planet. He visited their world numerous times, often mediating conflicts between the Wookiees and their aggressive neighbors. The Wookiees saw Yoda not just as an ally, but as a true friend of their people. In recognition of his longtime service, the Wookiees granted Yoda an ancient honor, the title Defender of the Home Tree. This ceremonial name was reserved for those who had protected the great city trees of Kashyyyk and the Wookiee way of life. Yoda was even adopted into Wookiee honor families, making him literally part of their extended clans. This wasn't just an empty title. It represented decades of real commitment. Yoda had stood with the Wookiees through conflicts, negotiations, and crises. And during the Clone Wars, they in turn stood with him as the worst attack on the Jedi Order took place. The fall of the Jedi Order. In 19 BBY, everything fell in place for the enemy of the Jedi. Chancellor Palpatine revealed himself to Anakin as Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord the Jedi had been hunting for 13 years. When Mace Windu attempted to arrest him, Anakin intervened, allowing Palpatine to kill Windu and seduce Anakin to the dark side as Darth Vader. Then came Order 66, the secret protocol embedded into every clone trooper's mind, branding all Jedi as traitors to be executed immediately. Yoda felt it on Kashyyyk, a massive disturbance in the Force as thousands of Jedi died simultaneously across the galaxy. Commander Gree and another clone approached Yoda from behind to execute him, but the Grand Master sensed their murderous intent. In one fluid motion, he decapitated both would-be assassins with his lightsaber. Chewbacca and Tarful, honoring Yoda's decades of friendship with their people, helped him escape into the Shadowlands and eventually off-planet. Senator Bail Organa evacuated both Yoda and Obi-Wan, bringing them back to Coruscant. In the ruined Jedi Temple, they found a massacre. Younglings and knights slaughtered not by clones, but by a lightsaber. Security recordings revealed the horrific truth. Anakin Skywalker, now Darth Vader, had led the slaughter. Yoda knew what had to be done. While Obi-Wan went to face his former apprentice, Yoda went directly to the Senate building to confront Darth Sidious. Their duel in the empty Senate chamber was legendary. Two masters of the Force at the height of their powers. They hurled Senate pods at each other with telekinesis, clashed lightsabers with blinding speed, and unleashed Force powers that shook the entire building. When Sidious struck with Force lightning, Yoda caught it and redirected it back, causing an explosion that sent both flying. But Yoda fell from the Chancellor's podium to the Senate floor far below. Though he survived, he realized a terrible truth. He would not win this battle. The Sith had won not through superior strength, but because the Jedi had been fighting the wrong war all along. For Yoda, there was only one course of action left. He had to flee. The Jedi Order was destroyed, with only a handful of survivors scattered across the galaxy. With that, he escaped and decided it was best to go into exile. Before parting ways with Obi-Wan, Yoda revealed one ray of hope. Qui-Gon had learned to become one with the Force and would teach them to do the same. However, more importantly for the galaxy, he also helped hide the Skywalker twins. Luke would go to Tatooine with Obi-Wan watching over him, while Leia would be adopted by the Organas on Alderaan. Yoda chose Dagobah for his exile, knowing its strong Force presence would hide him from the Emperor's senses. The mighty Grand Master of the Jedi Order vanished into the swamps, carrying the weight of the Order's destruction and the hope for its eventual rebirth. For 22 years, Yoda lived alone on Dagobah, the swamp world teeming with life and the Force. He made his home near a cave that was the nexus of dark side energy, its darkness masking his light from Palpatine's searching senses. In exile, Yoda lived simply, eating roots and swamp creatures, spending his days in meditation. But Yoda wasn't completely isolated. Through the Force, he continued his training with Qui-Gon's spirit, perfecting the technique that would allow him to maintain his identity after death. He also reached out through the Force to guide other survivors. When young Ezra Bridger and Kanan Jarrus sought wisdom in the Lothal Jedi Temple, Yoda's voice and vision guided them from across the galaxy. Mostly, though, Yoda waited. The Skywalker children were growing up, hidden from their father and the Emperor. As the galaxy fell into turmoil under the grasp of the Empire, Yoda remained patient, knowing hope wasn't lost for the Jedi and the galaxy. Bringing balance to the Force. In 3 ABY, hope arrived on Dagobah in the form of Luke Skywalker. Following a vision from Obi-Wan's ghost, Luke came seeking the great warrior Yoda, but the ancient master had one more test to give. Pretending to be a crazy swamp hermit, Yoda poked through Luke's supplies, stole his food, and acted completely oblivious to Luke's urgent mission. Yoda was testing Luke's patience, humility, and character through playfulness. Unfortunately, he found Luke impatient and reckless, much like his father. Therefore, he refused to train him, with the fear of making the same mistake twice. Only when Obi-Wan's spirit intervened did Yoda reveal himself and reluctantly agree to train the boy. Yoda's training pushed Luke physically and spiritually. He trained him to focus under tough situations. In a demonstration of power, the ancient master levitated Luke's sunken X-wing from the swamp with the Force, showing Luke that size meant nothing compared to belief. Yoda also sent Luke to confront his deepest fears. He sent him into the nearby dark-side cave without weapons. Inside, Luke faced a vision of Darth Vader, only to see his own face beneath the mask, a warning about the darkness he carried within himself. But Luke's training was cut short when he received visions of his friends suffering in Cloud City, despite Yoda and Obi-Wan begging him to stay, warning that it was a trap. Luke chose to leave. While he eventually did succeed in his mission, Yoda pondered on the young Padawan's recklessness. However, he also acknowledged that there is another Skywalker who can set them on the right path. A year later, Luke returned to complete his training, but found Yoda approaching the end of his life. Bedridden and weak, Yoda confirmed the truth Luke dreaded. Darth Vader was indeed his father. But he also told Luke that he must confront Vader again. Only by facing the Sith could he become a true Jedi Knight. With his final breaths, Yoda made another revelation. The other Skywalker, Luke's twin sister, Leia. Having passed on all he could, Yoda accepted that his time had come. After leaving his parting words to his young Padawan, Yoda peacefully passed at age 900. Luke watched in sorrow as his master became one with the Force. The last of the old Jedi Order was gone, but not truly dead. Yoda had achieved what no Sith ever could: immortality through the light side of the Force. True to his training, Yoda retained his consciousness after death. At the celebration on Endor after the Empire's defeat, Luke saw the spirits of Yoda, Obi-Wan, and his redeemed father Anakin watching over him, the old generation blessing the new. The real reason Yoda's species is so powerful isn't just their strength in the Force. It's something far more mysterious. Throughout thousands of years in galactic history, across countless wars, betrayals, and temptations, every known member of their species has remained loyal to the light side. Humans produced both Luke Skywalker and Emperor Palpatine. Zabraks gave the galaxy Jedi Masters and Darth Maul. Twi'leks became Jedi Knights and Sith Assassins. Every other Force-sensitive species spawned both heroes and villains, except one. This pattern becomes impossible to ignore when you examine the evidence. In canon, only 3 members are known: Yoda, Yaddle, and Grogu. All 3 serve the light side. In Legends, 3 more appear over a millennium: Vandar Tokare, Master Oteg, and Minch. 6 distinct individuals spanning thousands of years. Not one has been shown turning to the dark side in any official story. So why has this species never produced a Sith Lord? The answer lies in examining each member's story. Let's start with the most famous, Yoda himself. Canon describes him as small, just 0.66 meters tall, with green skin and large pointed ears. Yet it also describes him as stronger than most Jedi in his connection with the Force. For over 800 years, he trained Jedi at the Coruscant Temple, shaping the Order's philosophy and preparing thousands of students. Yoda faced temptations that would have broken almost any other Jedi. He watched the Republic crumble into corruption. He saw political leaders ignore warnings about threats. Even the Jedi Master experienced the pain of betrayal when his own Padawan, Count Dooku, became Darth Tyrannus and helped orchestrate the Clone Wars. The weight of these failures should have crushed him. Most Jedi who lose even one student to darkness question their entire philosophy. However, Yoda never developed distrust or bitterness that such losses typically create. The Order he'd served for centuries fell in a single night during Order 66. But the true test of Yoda's resistance to darkness happened inside his own mind. Canon detailed Yoda's ultimate internal test at the wellspring of life. The Force priestesses, ancient beings who existed since the Force first divided into light and dark, made him confront truths most beings wouldn't survive knowing. They showed him that the Jedi would fall and that the Sith would rule the galaxy. Then came the worst trial, confronting a shadow version of himself that embodied all his capacity for evil. This wasn't an external army, but part of Yoda himself. Every dark thought he'd ever suppressed, every moment of anger he'd ever felt, every temptation he'd ever resisted, given form and voice. The shadow showed him how his power and wisdom could have made him the ultimate Sith Lord. Most Jedi who face such trials either fall completely or barely survive with sanity intact. By the end, Yoda acknowledged the darkness by speaking to it directly. He accepted its existence but demonstrated that it could never control him. Yet his greatest test came when he faced Emperor Palpatine for the fate of the galaxy. In the Senate chamber, Yoda deflected Palpatine's Force lightning and fought him to a standstill. The duel ended with neither achieving victory. But what matters is that Yoda maintained perfect balance even as the fate of the entire galaxy was at stake. After the duel, Yoda made a choice that reveals something important about his nature. He retreated. To many Jedi, that might have seemed like failure. Yet Yoda understands a deeper truth. A heroic death would accomplish nothing. The Sith would still rule, and without him, there would be no one to train the next generation of hope. He went into exile on Dagobah, a remote, force-rich swamp planet. Within its depths lay the Cave of Evil, a site strongly attuned to the dark side. Yoda chose to live nearby, his presence hidden by the cave's dark energy, but untouched by its corruption. For 20 years, he lived there contemplating the failures of the Jedi and preparing for what would come next. He could have spent that time plotting revenge. Instead, he waited for what the Force would provide. When Luke Skywalker finally arrived, Yoda taught him lessons that would only come from 9 centuries of experience. He began not with lightsaber combat or Force techniques, but with philosophy and perspective. His famous teachings about size not mattering and the dark side being quicker and more seductive weren't just advice. They were truths he'd proven across his entire life. He understood that Luke's preconceptions about power would lead him toward darkness just as they had with Anakin. Maybe Yoda's resistance came from wisdom accumulated over centuries. But what would happen if you took someone from Yoda's species who doesn't have that experience and wisdom? Grogu provides a crucial test case, the youngest known member of Yoda's species at 50 years old. He was a student at the Coruscant Jedi Temple who survived Order 66 and was hidden away for many years. He finally appeared during the era of the Mandalorian. Order 66 should have broken him as a child. Grogu watched clone troopers, his protectors since birth, systematically murder his teachers and fellow students. The temple where he learned to walk, where he played and trained, became a slaughterhouse. Like other survivors of the Jedi Purge, Grogu soon learned that hiding was not enough. It was not until the New Republic era that Imperial remnants under Moff Gideon hunted him specifically for blood experiments. They didn't see him as a sentient being, but as a resource to harvest. That level of sustained trauma could have corrupted him just like many surviving Jedi who turned to darkness after Order 66. His feats on the Mandalorian told a different story than expected. When his powers reawakened, he displayed remarkable abilities with the Force. He didn't lash out with rage when faced with a charging mudhorn that threatened Din Djarin. Instead, he lifted the creature carefully, precisely, just long enough for his protector to find an opening. In another instance, he proved that he had compassion for friends and foes alike. When Greef Karga lay dying from poison, Grogu channeled pure energy to save him. This was the same bounty hunter who'd hunted him for profit. Yet Grogu showed no hesitation, no calculation about whether this person deserved help. He simply healed. But Grogu wasn't without struggle. His only moment approaching darkness came during a friendly arm wrestling match between Djarin and Cara Dune. Grogu used a Force choke reflexively out of fear, not malice. This ability is traditionally associated with the dark side. The scene demonstrates he's capable of using aggressive Force abilities when protecting those he cares about. When Ahsoka Tano tested him, she sensed his fear, his anger, and his attachment to Din Djarin. These are precisely the emotions that the Jedi Code warns against, the feelings that traditionally birth Sith Lords. Ahsoka warned Djarin that Grogu would need careful training due to these attachments and emotions. Additionally, she sensed something deeper. Her line about him being a good boy implies she perceived nobility alongside fear. What's notable isn't that Grogu can't feel dark emotions, it's that despite feeling them, despite having every reason to fall, he consistently chooses protection and healing over destruction. At 50 years old, still essentially an infant by his species standards, Grogu has already endured traumas that turned others to the dark side. Canon doesn't claim he's magically immune. In fact, Ahsoka explicitly warns that his fear and attachment are dangerous, the very emotions that lead to the dark side. It shows him struggling with the same temptations as others. The difference lies in how he responds. If trauma couldn't corrupt a child, what about the ultimate betrayal of trust? In canon around 32 BBY, Yaddle, another member of Yoda's species, experienced such betrayal. This female master, who served on the Council in the final decades of the Republic, uncovered Count Dooku's fall to the dark side before anyone else suspected. She'd known Dooku for centuries. They'd meditated together, trained students together, and debated philosophy together. The betrayal should have felt deeply personal. She faced a choice that had destroyed countless Jedi throughout history: expose the traitor immediately or attempt redemption through compassion. The smart move would have been immediate action. Alert the Council, mobilize the Temple Guard, treat Dooku as the enemy he'd become. The danger was absolute. Dooku had already begun working with Darth Sidious. One wrong move meant death. Most Jedi would have attacked first, seeing only a Sith threat that needed elimination. Instead, Yaddle approached him with genuine compassion. She believed even someone acutely falling could be saved through understanding rather than force. When Dooku murdered her, she died without hatred. Before dying, she warned Dooku, telling him the Council was wrong about certain things, but that his path led nowhere good. This pattern of unwavering loyalty to the light extends even further back into galactic history. In Legends, Vandar Tokare served as a Jedi Master around 4000 BBY during the Mandalorian Wars. He led the Jedi Enclave on Dantooine, appearing prominently in Knights of the Old Republic. When planets burned and young Jedi like Revan and Malak defied Council orders to join the fight, Vandar counseled patience. The pressure to act must have been overwhelming. Every day of delay meant more deaths, more worlds conquered. Republic media painted the Council as cowards. Young Jedi looked at masters like Vandar with barely concealed contempt, seeing his caution as weakness. But Vandar taught patience for a reason. He understood that acting without full information often made things worse. Jedi who rushed into war without caution became vulnerable to the dark side, as seen in the rise of Darth Revan and Darth Malak. In contrast, those who listened to his advice remained on the light side. Around 3951 BBY, Legends sources describe Vandar's death at Katar's conclave when Darth Nihilus arrived. Nihilus was something far worse than a typical Sith Lord. He was a wound in the Force itself, a being of pure hunger that consumed all life on planets. Most beings died instantly when Nihilus fed, their life force ripped away in seconds. According to those accounts, Vandar lasted long enough to help others escape, creating force barriers that bought precious moments. His final thoughts focused on protecting others, maintaining his connection to the light, even as darkness literally consumed him. Around the same era, another member demonstrated something equally remarkable. Master Oteg served as both Jedi Master and Republic Fleet Admiral during the Great Galactic War and subsequent Cold War, around 3643 BBY. He commanded Republic forces against a Sith Empire that showed no mercy. Along with Vandar Tokare, he is one of the few known members of Yoda's species to speak in standard grammar. Unlike Yoda and Yaddle, he doesn't twist words in the distinctive syntax his species is known for. Despite this, his Force sensibilities and unwavering commitment to the light side remained identical. The Sith of that era conducted orbital bombardments that destroyed entire civilian populations. They used biological weapons and terror tactics that violated every treaty and convention. The temptation to respond with equal brutality must have been overwhelming. Oteg's own officers begged him to authorize strikes against Sith civilian targets. They presented compelling arguments. A shorter war would mean fewer total deaths. Matching enemy tactics seemed the only path to victory, and the Sith had started the brutality. Still, Oteg refused to target non-combatants, even when it cost him battles he could have won. He prioritized minimizing casualties over quick victories. For him, the Jedi needed to prove they were better than the Sith. He led by example, never asking his troops to maintain standards he wouldn't uphold himself. This species responds to concentrated darkness. Around 700 BBY, Dark Jedi terrorized the Bafash system, slaughtering innocents across multiple worlds. These weren't military targets, but farming colonies, mining outposts, families who'd never held weapons. Minch, a young knight of Yoda's species barely past his 100th year, pursued one of these dark Jedi to a remote planet. His fellow Jedi tried to stop him, believing the pursuit was too dangerous. But Minch insisted, placing complete faith in the Force to guide him. The planet was Dagobah, the very same location where Yoda would later hide. The battle between Minch and the Dark Jedi was so intense that it permanently scarred the location. The dark energies released during their duel created what would later become the Cave of Evil that Luke Skywalker entered centuries later. That's the level of corruption Minch faced. Concentrated evil so intense, it literally affected the planet itself. According to legends, he was emotionally destabilized and narrowly avoided falling to the dark side. Drawing on light side reserves that seemed beyond what someone so young should possess, he pulled himself back and defeated the Dark Jedi. When the mission ended, he claimed no glory. He simply marked the assignment complete, noted the location's danger, and moved to his next task. This humility after such a victory shows a pattern. They don't boast about resisting darkness. They simply do it and move forward. So what makes them different? While canon and legends never explicitly explain this, we can observe certain patterns in their biology and behavior. The key starts with their developmental timeline. At 50 years old, Grogu was still essentially an infant. Although his mind was developing, his emotional and physical development moved at a completely different pace. Think about what this means for Force development. Human Force sensitivities begin facing moral complexities by age 15. They experience jealousy over peers' achievements, ambition for personal advancement, fear of failure, and loss. All these emotions can feed the dark side while they're still learning to channel the Force. Yoda's species spends approximately 50 years in childhood, 5 entire decades, where their developing minds absorb Force energy while experiencing childhood emotions rather than adult corruption. During this time, they sense the Force, feel it flowing through all living things, and even manipulate it instinctively, but they experience emotions through a child's framework. When scared, they seek comfort rather than plotting revenge. When frustrated, they might act out momentarily like Grogu, but it comes from protective instinct rather than hatred. When attached, they love without trying to possess or control. By the time they reach full maturity around 100 years old, they've spent decades with these patterns established. The databank confirms Yoda lived roughly 900 years and trained Jedi for over 8 centuries. This formative period represented only about 5 to 6% of his total life. He spent 50 years building light-side foundations, then over 800 years reinforcing them through experience. Compare this to other species. Humans maybe spend 10 to 15 years in relative innocence, then 60 to 80 years facing temptation. Their formative period represents 15 to 20% of their total life, happening when they're emotionally vulnerable. But extended childhood alone doesn't fully explain their consistency. Their extreme rarity adds another dimension. In both canon and legends, their homeworld and species name remain officially unknown. George Lucas intentionally kept this information secret, and Lucasfilm maintains that mystery to this day. With only a handful of members appearing across thousands of years of galactic history, each one becomes precious beyond measure. This isn't random. It suggests something unique about their origins, though official sources never explain what. Some fans theorize their homeworld might be a light-side nexus, similar to how Korriban radiates darkness, or how Mortis existed as a Force convergence. Beings evolved in such an environment might possess Force energy differently at the cellular level. However, no official canon or legend source confirms this theory. Others suggest they appear when the galaxy needs them most. Tracking their historical appearances shows an interesting pattern. Yoda and Yaddle emerged during the Republic's final centuries, precisely when the Sith were implementing their grand plan. Vandar and Oteg appeared during desperate Sith wars, while Grogu emerged during the New Republic's formation. Each appearance comes when the galaxy faces a crisis of light versus dark. But again, this is observation, not official explanation. Canon and legends simply present the facts without commentary on deeper meaning. What official sources do show is how they process emotions differently than most Force users. When Grogu experiences fear, he seeks safety rather than lashing out. His fear doesn't transform into anger at threats. When attached to his protector, Din Djarin, he chooses love over possession. He wants to be with him, but doesn't try to control him. Even when he does use aggressive Force abilities, like choking Cara Dune, It's momentary and protective. This pattern exists in Yoda as well. After 8 centuries of teaching, he never developed cynicism. He trained thousands of Jedi over his lifetime. Statistically, many died in combat. Hundreds fell to darkness. Some betrayed everything he taught them. Yoda carried the weight of every mistake, every failure, every lost student. Yet each new youngling received the same patience and dedication. Yoda confronted his own capacity for evil directly. The fact that he could acknowledge darkness within himself while maintaining that it would never control him shows remarkable self-awareness. He didn't suppress or deny the darkness. He accepted its existence as part of being alive, then chose light anyway. On Dagobah, surrounded by a concentrated dark side presence for 20 years, Yoda could have given in to despair. He could have spent that time in anger at the Council's failures. He could have lost faith in the Jedi way after watching everything fall apart. Instead, he maintained hope, knowing the Force would provide another chance. In Legends, Yaddle's sacrifice demonstrated the same pattern of choosing light even unto death. When she confronted Dooku, knowing he'd fallen, she could have attacked immediately out of anger at his betrayal. Instead, she approached with compassion, believing even someone actively falling could be saved through understanding. Vandar showed similar dedication in Legends. Despite pressure from young, aggressive Jedi who saw his caution as weakness, he maintained his position based on wisdom and foresight. Oteg demonstrated it through military command. Although he had the authority to order devastating strikes that might shorten the war, he refused to compromise Jedi principles by targeting civilians. He proved that maintaining honor wasn't weakness, but strength. And young Minch in Legends showed that even members barely past childhood exhibited this trait. Facing a dark Jedi on Dagobah in a battle so intense it permanently scarred the location, Minch drew on light side reserves to prevail. Then, he simply reported the mission complete and moved on, claiming no glory. The battle created the cave, but Minch walked away without corruption. 6 individuals, all facing circumstances that historically create Sith Lords. Yet in every official story, canon or legends, each one maintained their connection to the light. Official sources never explain why this is. The mystery of Yoda's species may never be solved. George Lucas ensured these beings would remain enigmatic. Their homeworld stays classified. Even their species' name remains secret. This might be intentional. In a galaxy that demands explanations for everything, that finds scientific reasons for every phenomenon, Yoda's species reminds us that some wonders should remain wonderful. They are the Force's greatest mystery. What they prove is that unwavering dedication to the light side is possible. They show that wisdom can be accumulated without cynicism, that power can be wielded without corruption, that some beings, through whatever combination of biology, culture, and choice, remain anchored to the light across centuries of temptation. Every member represents a living example of Jedi ideals at their purest. They face darkness, acknowledge it, understand it, and still choose light. Not one shown falling. That's not a coincidence, but rather a pattern worth examining. They prove the Jedi philosophy isn't naive idealism, but an achievable truth. That compassion, patience, and wisdom aren't limitations, but advantages. That the light side, though harder to master and maintain, leads to something genuine and lasting. No official source claims they're biologically incapable of falling. They face the same temptations as others: fear, anger, attachment, loss, betrayal. The difference is in how they respond. This consistency across individuals, eras, and circumstances is what makes them truly powerful. Not just their strength in the Force, though official sources confirm they possess that. Not just their longevity, though living for centuries provides advantages. Not just their wisdom, though experience shapes understanding. What makes them powerful is their example. They demonstrate that the light side isn't a limitation. Choosing compassion over vengeance, patience over aggression, and service over domination doesn't make you weak. It makes you unbreakable. That's the real mystery of Yoda's species. In a galaxy where every other Force-sensitive species has produced both villains and heroes, this one species has produced only Jedi. And perhaps that's exactly how it should remain. A mystery that inspires, rather than a puzzle to be solved. In over 4,000 years of galactic history, only 7 story-relevant members of Yoda's species have ever been recorded. They have no known homeworld, no species name, and no explanation for their extraordinary connection to the Force. Yet every recorded member demonstrated extraordinary Force abilities, with most rising to the highest ranks of the Jedi Order. Drawing from both Canon and Legends sources, this is every member of Yoda's species explained. The first and earliest known member of Yoda's species lived nearly 4,000 years before the Empire rose to power. His name was Vandar Tokare, and he served on the Jedi Council during some of the most devastating wars the galaxy had ever seen. In the Legends continuity, Vandar appears in the video game Knights of the Old Republic, set in 3956 BBY. He stood roughly the same height as Yoda, with the same green skin and large pointy ears. Notably, Vandar mostly spoke with normal grammar, though he occasionally used slight inversions without the consistent backwards sentence structure that Yoda would later become famous for, a distinction that becomes important when examining the other members of this species. Vandar served on the Dantooine Jedi Enclave Council during the Mandalorian Wars, when the warrior clans nearly conquered the entire Republic. He watched a promising young Jedi named Revan defy the Council and lead a faction of Jedi to war. That decision saved the Republic, but it also corrupted Revan completely, and the young hero returned as Darth Revan, a Sith Lord who nearly destroyed the very order he once served. Vandar also helped train one of the era's most important Jedi, Bastila Shan. Her rare gift of battle meditation could turn the tide of entire wars by boosting Allied morale while crushing the enemy's will to fight. When Revan threatened to overwhelm the Republic with his Sith armada, Bastila's abilities became the Jedi's greatest weapon, and Vandar recognized her potential and helped nurture it. That training would prove decisive in the war to come. After Revan was captured and his memory erased by the Jedi Council, Vandar helped guide the former Sith Lord back to the light. He was present when Revan discovered the Star Forge, an ancient factory producing endless fleets for the Sith Empire, and he saw Revan make the choice to destroy the Star Forge rather than claim its power. For a brief moment, it seemed the Jedi had won. The victory did not last. 4 years after those events, in 3952 BBY, Jedi Master Atris secretly called a conclave on the planet Qatar, hoping to identify the mysterious Sith threat that was systematically hunting Jedi across the galaxy. Vandar attended that gathering, unaware that Atris had deliberately leaked its location, hoping to draw out the enemy. The enemy who came was Darth Nihilus, a being of pure hunger who consumed life through the Force. Nihilus was not a typical Sith Lord because he had become something else entirely, a wound in the Force that fed on living energy. When Nihilus arrived at Qatar, he consumed every living thing on the planet's surface, and millions died in an instant. Vandar Tokare, the first recorded member of Yoda's species, perished alongside his fellow Jedi. Only one being survived, a Miracula named Visas Mar, whom Nihilus took as his apprentice. Though Vandar had fallen to the Sith, he would not be the last of his kind to face them. Moving on, the second member of Yoda's species existed approximately 300 years later. His name was Oteg, and he rose to prominence in the Jedi Order around 3643 BBY during the Great Galactic War between the Republic and the resurgent Sith Empire. He served as a Jedi Master and Fleet Admiral, commanding the Republic's first expeditionary fleet from the bridge of the dreadnought Talos. Like Vandar before him, Oteg spoke with completely normal grammar and possessed tremendous wisdom and power. Unlike Vandar, Oteg took direct military action against the Sith. Oteg appears in the video game Star Wars: The Old Republic, where he learned through the Force ghost of Mitra Surik that a powerful Jedi had been held prisoner by the Sith Emperor for over 300 years. That prisoner was Revan himself, the redeemed Jedi who had destroyed the Star Forge centuries earlier. The Sith had captured him and kept him alive through the Force for 3 centuries of torment. and Oteg commanded the Republic fleet in an assault on the Maelstrom prison, a secret Sith facility hidden in a deadly nebula, to free him. The attack succeeded, and Revan was freed, but victory came at a terrible cost. Grand Moff Rikus Kilran's Imperial Fifth Fleet ambushed Oteg's forces, trapping them between Imperial warships and the prison's defenses. Oteg ordered his fleet to buy time for the strike team completing the rescue mission inside the prison, knowing full well what it would cost him. In one possible outcome of the battle, Oteg's flagship was destroyed during the engagement, with the Jedi Master giving his life to ensure the mission's success. Two members of Yoda's species had now given their lives in service to the Jedi. Vandar served on the Dantooine Enclave Council, while Oteg commanded Republic fleets. Both spoke normally, and both died confronting the Sith Empire. A pattern was emerging. These rare beings devoted themselves entirely to the light side of the Force, even when it cost them everything. But evidence suggests another member of this species may have served in an even darker time. The third recorded reference to a member of Yoda's species comes not from historical records, but from stone. In the Valley of the Jedi, on Ruusan, among the monuments commemorating the 7th Battle of Ruusan in 1000 BBY, stands a statue depicting a small figure with the unmistakable figures of Yoda's kind. The presence of this monument raises questions that have never fully been answered. The 7th Battle of Ruusan ended the 1,000-year conflict between the Jedi and the Brotherhood of Darkness. When Lord Khan faced certain defeat, he activated a thought bomb, a devastating Force weapon that destroyed the souls of every Force user caught in its blast radius. Lord Hoth led 99 Jedi into the caves where Khan waited, sacrificing themselves to ensure no Sith escaped. The explosion killed them all, and their spirits were trapped in the Valley of the Jedi, imprisoned between life and death for 1,000 years. The statue's presence among these monuments suggests a member of Yoda's species served in that final battle, though whether they died alongside their fellow Jedi or somehow escaped the thought bomb's effects remains unknown. What we do know is that Yoda himself later possessed knowledge about the valley and its trapped spirits, and he shared this information with other Jedi, including Kuran. Centuries later, that knowledge became critical when the Dark Jedi Jarek sought to absorb the valley's power for himself. Kyle Katarn stopped him, but only because the valley's existence had been preserved in Jedi memory. The unnamed figure in stone stands as a silent testimony to a presence we may never fully understand, but the fourth confirmed member of this species left behind something far more tangible. The fourth member of this species created something that would shape galactic destiny. His name was Minch, and his story appears in Star Wars Tales Issue 16, a Legends comic titled Heart of Darkness. Unlike the previous members, Minch spoke with the same unusual grammar pattern that Yoda would later use, making this the first recorded instance of that distinctive speech style in any member of the species. Minch was a Jedi Knight, assigned by the Council to hunt Dark Jedi across the galaxy. In 700 BBY, he served under a Zabrak Jedi Master named Tadai on a mission to the Bafash system, where several Dark Jedi had been corrupting Force-sensitive individuals and turning them to darkness. When the Dark Jedi's leader fled toward the Outer Rim, the Jedi gave chase, and the pursuit led to a remote swamp world called Dagobah. Lightning struck Minch's ship as he entered the atmosphere, and the crash landing left him stranded on the planet's surface. Master Tadai ordered him to wait for extraction, but Minch ignored the command. Eager to prove himself, he pursued his target through the dense jungle vegetation until he found the Dark Jedi Master waiting at the entrance to a cave, and the enemy smiled at his arrival. The confrontation that followed would have lasting consequences. The Dark Jedi mocked Minch's small size, calling the young Jedi a child who was weak and full of fear and anger. Minch responded with fury, insisting he was not a child, and the Dark Jedi's smile widened because he had found exactly the weakness he was looking for. The Dark Jedi offered Minch a choice by summoning shadow warriors from the depths of the cave and telling the small Jedi to give in to the dark side, promising to show him what true power really meant. Minch refused, and the battle was joined. Using Force illusions, the Dark Jedi seemed to multiply into hundreds of smaller versions of himself, overwhelming Minch, and the young Jedi struck out desperately with his lightsaber. When Minch recovered, the Dark Jedi lay mortally wounded, but the enemy's final words proved to be a curse rather than a defeat. With his dying breath, the Dark Jedi proclaimed himself the victor, claiming Minch's mind was weak and open, written with fear and anger like a book for anyone to read. He predicted that Minch would one day make a great addition to the Dark Jedi, and then he died, his blood seeping into the cave floor. The narrator of the comic reveals the true significance of this battle. On that fateful day, on that remote planet, the balance of the Force changed forever. A new place of power was created, as the cave where Minch killed the Dark Jedi became saturated with dark side energy. The violence of that confrontation left a permanent stain on the Force. 700 years later, Luke Skywalker would enter that same cave during his training with Yoda. Inside, he would face a vision of Darth Vader, strike down the apparition with his lightsaber, and beneath the mask, he would discover his own face staring back at him. In Legends, the cave Minch created became a major dark side nexus, though canon acknowledges this location but does not identify him as its creator. Either way, it became one of the most important locations in Star Wars history. The very place that would one day test Luke Skywalker was born from a young Jedi's moment of anger 7 centuries earlier. But the 5th member of this species would spend 900 years trying to prevent exactly that kind of fall. The 5th member of this species is Yoda, who was born in 896 BBY, making him the oldest known member of his kind by a significant margin. He trained Jedi for over 800 years, and estimates suggest he taught approximately 20,000 students during his lifetime. He stood 66 centimeters tall and possessed abilities that made him one of the most powerful Force users in galactic history. In Legends, Yoda was considered a master of all lightsaber forms, and he could sense the future with remarkable clarity. He could deflect Force lightning with his bare hands and appear to others through the Force across vast distances. He learned to survive as a Force spirit after death, a secret taught to him by Qui-Gon Jinn, and he passed this knowledge to Obi-Wan Kenobi and eventually to Anakin Skywalker himself. In Legends continuity, the New Essential Chronology reveals that approximately 200 years before the Battle of Yavin, Yoda sensed something disturbing in the Force. The greatest Jedi Masters felt a murkiness, an uncertainty, a looming sense of dread pointing to the growing power of the dark side. Yoda developed a theory about this gathering darkness, believing it indicated the coming fulfillment of an ancient prophecy about a chosen one who would destroy the Sith forever. Yoda knew he was not that person, understanding that the dark side could only be fully defeated by someone more powerful than any Jedi in the Order's history. So, he would spend centuries waiting for that individual to appear. His greatest failure was also his greatest student. Count Dooku trained under Yoda and became what the Grand Master called the Order's greatest student and its greatest failure. Dooku possessed incredible talent and sharp intellect, but he also possessed pride, and that pride led him to question the Jedi way. Eventually, he left the Order entirely, and years later, he returned as a Sith Lord serving Darth Sidious. The Clone Wars transformed Yoda from teacher to general, and the change troubled him deeply. Both canon and legend sources show Yoda leading troops into battle while questioning whether the Jedi had lost their way. He commanded Republic forces at the First Battle of Geonosis, defended Kashyyyk alongside the Wookiees, earning the title Defender of the Home Tree, and led 3 clone troopers against hundreds of battle droids on the moon Rugosa, demonstrating that numbers meant nothing against wisdom and the Force. He assigned Anakin Skywalker a Padawan named Ahsoka Tano, hoping the experience would teach Anakin about attachment and loss. When the time came for Ahsoka to go her own way, Anakin would understand that he need not cling so tightly to those he loved. That was the plan, but none of it worked. When Order 66 came, Yoda felt thousands of Jedi die through the Force. He escaped execution on Kashyyyk and returned to Coruscant, where he discovered the horrifying truth about Anakin's fall. The Revenge of the Sith novelization by Matthew Stover describes Yoda examining the bodies at the Jedi Temple. He found Sindralig, the temple's lightsaber instructor, among the dead. Yoda had trained Dralig himself, and the grief was almost unbearable. But Yoda could not afford to grieve because two Sith Lords now controlled the galaxy, and Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi were among the only Jedi left who could challenge them. Together, they made a decision that would define the next 2 decades. Obi-Wan would face Anakin, now called Darth Vader, while Yoda would confront the Emperor himself. Yoda's duel with Darth Sidious in the Senate chamber revealed the terrible truth about the Jedi Order's failure. The novelization provides Yoda's thoughts during the battle, as the two most powerful Force users in the galaxy clashed with lightsabers first. Yoda actually disarmed Sidious during their blade-to-blade combat, demonstrating his superior skill with a weapon, but Sidious had other tools at his disposal. The Emperor leaped to higher ground and began hurling Senate pods at Yoda with the Force. As massive platforms crashed around him, Yoda had a terrible realization. The Sith had evolved over 1,000 years, becoming masters of manipulation and deception, while the Jedi had spent those same centuries training to fight the last war, preparing for enemies who no longer existed. The Jedi had been fighting the wrong enemy the entire time, and Yoda understood that he had lost before he started. He had lost before he was born. The duel ended in a stalemate when Sidious unleashed Force lightning, and Yoda caught it with his bare hands, redirecting it back toward its source. An explosion of energy blasted both combatants apart. Sidious clung to a railing, while Yoda fell to the Senate floor far below. Clone troopers flooded the chamber, so Yoda escaped into a maintenance tunnel, cutting through conduits and walls to evade pursuit, while using the Force to sprint faster than any human could run. He dropped from the Senate building into the Coruscant night, using his cloak as an improvised airfoil to slow his descent. He fell directly into Bail Organa's waiting speeder, and when the senator asked if Yoda was wounded, the Grand Master admitted that only his pride had been hurt. Yoda's exile on Dagobah lasted 23 years, and he chose the planet deliberately. In Legends, the darkside cave that Minch had created 7 centuries earlier masked Yoda's presence in the Force. Recent canon material from the anthology From a Certain Point of View, Return of the Jedi, reveals something remarkable. Yoda's light side presence actually kept the dark cave in balance, his energy counteracting the darkness. When Yoda died, the dark side surged across the planet, spreading through the ecosystem like a shadow. During his exile, Yoda renewed his connection to the natural world. He meditated on how the Jedi had lost their way and prepared to train an apprentice who might become a new hope for the galaxy. His hut measured barely over a meter tall, built against an ancient gnarl tree using mud, rock, and bark, and he survived on a vegetarian diet of yarrow seeds, marsh fungi, gimmer bark, and root leaf soup. Yoda trained Luke Skywalker in the ways of the Force during his final years. He lifted Luke's crashed X-Wing using only the Force, demonstrating that size matters not, even though the ship weighed over 12,000 kilograms. He tested Luke in the Darkside Cave, where the young Jedi saw visions of Vader with Luke's own face beneath the mask. When Luke left Dagobah early to save his friends on Cloud City, Yoda feared he would lose another Skywalker to darkness. Luke returned years later to complete his training and found Yoda dying of old age at 900 years. The Ancient Master's final words carried the weight of centuries. He confirmed that Vader was truly Anakin Skywalker, Luke's father, and warned him about the Emperor's power and the seduction of the dark side. He declared that when he was gone, Luke would be the last of the Jedi. Yoda acknowledged that while he was strong with the Force, he was not strong enough to prevent his passing, recognizing that twilight was upon him and that this was simply the way of things and the way of the Force. His final instruction was simple: pass on what you have learned. The Force runs strong in your family. Then, with his last breath, he revealed there was another Skywalker, and his body faded into nothingness as he became one with the Force. The last Grand Master of the old Jedi Order had completed his journey, but one more member of his species had served alongside him on the Council, and her story had two very different endings. The sixth member of Yoda's species has two very different fates depending on which continuity you follow. Yaddle was born around 509 BBY, making her roughly half Yoda's age. In Legends, she earned the title The One Below during one of the most harrowing experiences any Jedi ever survived. As a young Padawan, Yaddle accompanied her master, Pulvin Kut, on a mission to liberate the planet Dagobah from a warlord named Tulak. The mission went terribly wrong when Tulak's forces ambushed the Jedi over the Koban Gorge. Pulvin Kut let revenge affect his judgment because he had been tracking Tulak for decades after the warlord murdered his family. Surrounded by enemies, Kut left himself open for attack, and he was killed and beheaded, leaving his Padawan alone against dozens of fighters. Tulak captured Yaddle and imprisoned her in an underground chamber, subjecting her to torture and interrogation while demanding to know when more Jedi would arrive. Yaddle refused to break, telling Tulak that only his reign of terror would end. Eventually, Tulak grew tired of his failed attempts and left the planet, forgetting about his prisoner. The people of Dagobah continued sending food down the shaft as a ritual, barely remembering why, and Yaddle remained underground for over 100 years. Her imprisonment became her transformation. During those decades of isolation, Yaddle achieved complete unity with the Force by reliving her late master's lessons over and over until she understood them completely. She learned combat by fighting predators that wandered into her cave, using nothing but a wooden stick, and she became something the Jedi Order had never seen, a Padawan who trained herself to mastery through sheer will and connection to the Force. When an earthquake finally created an opening, Yaddle emerged to find Dagobah devastated by natural disasters. Rather than returning to the Jedi Temple, she stayed and helped the very people who had imprisoned her rebuild their society. She taught their children and brought hope to a world that had forgotten what hope felt like. When Tulak's son, Kalut, returned to claim the planet, Yaddle defeated him with the same wooden stick she had used for a century, and only then did she return to Coruscant. The Jedi Council faced an unusual situation. Yaddle had been a Padawan when she was captured, and she was still technically a Padawan over a century later. Yet she had achieved a mastery of the Force that rivaled anyone in the Order, and she had learned techniques the Council considered too dangerous to teach. Morichiro was one such technique, an ancient and forbidden Jedi combat art that allowed the user to rapidly slow a target's bodily functions to the point of death. The Council restricted it only to a handful of trusted masters, yet Yaddle had mastered it alone in her underground prison. Force Light was even rarer, an ability that followed a Jedi to purge dark side energy from a location or person. Yaddle was the only known Jedi of her time who could wield it, and her century of isolation had given her powers most Jedi would never achieve. The Council proposed elevating her directly to Jedi Master and granting her a seat on the Council itself. Only Yoda objected, citing the break from tradition, but after glimpsing her future in the Force, he relented. Yaddle joined the Council and went on to train dozens of Padawans, including Oppo Rancisis, who later joined her on the Council. In canon continuity, Yaddle's death comes at the hands of Count Dooku. The animated Tales of the Jedi shows Yaddle following Dooku after Qui-Gon Jinn's funeral in 32 BBY. She discovers him meeting with Darth Sidious in secret, finding proof that a Sith Lord controls the galaxy's politics. She could expose everything. Instead of attacking, Yaddle offers Dooku compassion, pleading with him to bring Sidious to justice and assuring him that whatever lies he had been told and whatever he had done, he could make up for it now. Dooku hesitates, and for a moment, redemption seems possible. Then, Sidious orders Dooku to prove his loyalty, and a lightsaber duel erupts. Yaddle fights bravely, matching Dooku's blade with her own, and she uses the Force to lift a massive hangar door that Dooku drops on her, demonstrating her considerable power. But Dooku's attack is relentless, and he strikes her down with his blade while Sidious watches approvingly. In her final moments, Yaddle condemns Dooku's twisted vision, pointing out how many had suffered for what he calls order. Her death completes Dooku's fall to the dark side, and he earns the name Darth Tyrannus. In Legends continuity, Yaddle passes away 6 years later in a very different way. She accompanies Obi-Wan Kenobi and his Padawan Anakin Skywalker on a mission to the planet Mawan in 26 BBY. Their goal is to restore peace to a lawless world, but a villain named Granta Omega has other plans. Omega releases a deadly bioweapon in the city of Natan, and thousands of innocent people will die. Yaddle makes the impossible choice by using the Force to absorb the entire chemical blast into her own body, drawing the deadly substance into herself like a great net woven from the Force. She saves the city, but dies instantly from the effort. Her final act is to speak telepathically to Anakin, encouraging him about his destiny as the Chosen One. Even in death, she was teaching, and even in death, she was thinking of others. One important detail distinguishes Yaddle from Yoda in canon. She speaks with normal grammar. The Tales of the Jedi episode shows Yaddle speaking standard basic without Yoda's distinctive syntax, confirming that Yoda's unusual speech pattern is a personal quirk rather than a trait of their species. Vandar, Oteg, and Yaddle all spoke normally, while only Minch and Yoda used the distinctive backward structure. But the seventh and final known member of this species would prove that their kind could forge entirely new paths. His name is Grogu, and he represents a bridge between two ancient traditions, a child who would ultimately choose family over the Jedi path. Grogu was born in 41 BBY, the same year as Anakin Skywalker. He trained at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant under multiple masters, and Ahsoka Tano later confirmed this during her meeting with him, revealing that he was raised at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, where many masters trained him over the years. He was 50 years old during the events of The Mandalorian, yet his species ages so slowly that he still appeared and behaved like a toddler. Grogu survived Order 66 through circumstances that remained mysterious for years. The Mandalorian Season 3 finally revealed the truth. When clone troopers stormed the Jedi Temple, several Jedi gave their lives defending Grogu by directing his pram into an elevator and shouting to get the youngling to Keller and Beck. A Jedi Master nicknamed the Sabered Hand, Beck was responsible for training younglings at the temple, and he fought through waves of clone troopers with dual lightsabers to reach Grogu. With help from Naboo allies, Beck escaped Coruscant on a Nubian yacht and delivered Grogu to safety. The child spent the following decades hidden, suppressing his Force abilities to avoid detection by the Empire. He buried his traumatic memories so deeply that even he could not access them, and Ahsoka sensed these dark gaps when she communed with him through the Force, finding that his memory became dark and that he seemed lost and alone. The decades in hiding left the young alien emotionally scarred, fearful, and hesitant to use his powers openly. In 9 ABY, Grogu's whereabouts had become known to the Imperial Remnant. Moff Gideon wanted the child's blood for cloning experiments because his high midichlorian count made him invaluable for research. A bounty was placed on Grogu's head, and a Mandalorian bounty hunter named Din Djarin accepted the contract. Djarin found Grogu on the planet Arvala 7 and initially intended to deliver the asset as contracted. When an assassin droid tried to terminate the child, Djarin made a different choice. He protected Grogu, brought the child aboard his ship, and began a journey that would change both their lives. Their travels across the galaxy revealed Grogu's incredible potential. He lifted a charging mudhorn beast using the Force, saving Djarin's life, but collapsing from exhaustion afterward. He healed mortal wounds with a touch, demonstrating a gift for Force healing that is extremely rare and seldom practiced in canon. And he created a protective Force barrier against an incinerator trooper's flames, saving everyone in the room. He also revealed darker instincts, and when he believed Jaren was being threatened during an arm wrestling match with their ally Cara Dune, Grogu force-choked her. Jaren had to physically stop him because the child's protective instincts could turn dangerous when fear took hold. The Mandalorian armorer declared Grogu a foundling and named Jaren his father under Mandalorian custom, calling them a clan of two. She also gave Jaren a quest: return the child to his own kind, or raise him as a Mandalorian. Ahsoka Tano sensed something troubling when she communed with Grogu through the Force, recognizing his species immediately since she had only known one other being like this, a wise Jedi Master named Yoda. She learned his name and his history at the Jedi Temple, and she also sensed his powerful attachment to Din Djarin, an attachment born of both love and fear. Ahsoka refused to train him, warning that his emotional bonds could lead him to the dark side. She had seen her own master fall to darkness, and she would not risk creating another. She directed them to Tython, an ancient Jedi world where Grogu could reach out through the Force to find another teacher. Luke Skywalker answered Grogu's call. The son of Anakin Skywalker arrived aboard Moff Gideon's cruiser, cutting through an army of dark troopers to rescue the child. In a moment that echoed across generations, Grogu left with Luke to train at his new Jedi Academy. For a time, it seemed Grogu would follow the traditional Jedi path. Luke found that teaching him was unique because it was more like Grogu was remembering than Luke was actually teaching him anything. Years of training already existed within Grogu, buried beneath trauma and fear, and Luke helped him recover those skills. He taught him to leap with the Force, to balance, to focus, and he used the Force to lift frogs, inspiring Grogu to lift one himself, though mainly because he wanted to eat it. But Luke also sensed conflict because Grogu missed Din Djarin. He gazed off into the distance, thinking of his Mandalorian father, and when Luke helped Grogu remember Order 66, the child relived the horror of watching Jedi fall to protect him. His attachment to Djarin made sense because the Mandalorian was the first person to protect him since that terrible night. Luke offered Grogu a choice with two items before him: Yoda's lightsaber and the Beskar chainmail Din Djarin had sent as a gift. Although earlier canon sources stated Yoda's lightsaber was destroyed during an Imperial ceremony, the Book of Boba Fett depicts Luke offering Grogu a green lightsaber identified as Yoda's. The lightsaber meant continuing Jedi training, while the armor meant returning to his Mandalorian family. Grogu could choose only one. Grogu chose Din Djarin. He returned to his father's side and has remained there ever since. In The Mandalorian Season 3, Grogu participates in Mandalorian combat training, uses the acrobatic skills Luke taught him to defeat a fellow foundling in a friendly match by executing 3 impressive flips before tagging his opponent. He saves Din from danger multiple times, demonstrating growing control over his abilities. And when Moff Gideon attacks the Mandalorian covert, Grogu creates a force barrier that shields Din and Bo-Katan Kryze from the explosion as the cruiser crashes. The season ends with Din Djarin formally adopting Grogu as his son. The armorer pronounces Grogu an apprentice of Clan Mudhorn, giving him the name Din Grogu. Because he cannot yet speak, he cannot take the full Mandalorian oath, but his place among the Mandalorians is secure. He will grow up following the way of the Mandalore while carrying the Force abilities trained by Luke Skywalker himself. The species of Yoda remains a mystery to this day, with no homeworld ever identified and no population beyond these 7 individuals ever recorded. The result is a species defined entirely by the individuals who represent it: wise, powerful, long-lived, and extraordinarily rare. Several patterns emerge from these 7 lives. All 7 demonstrated exceptional Force sensitivity, and most served on the Jedi Council or held positions of significant authority. Several died fighting the Sith or sacrificing themselves for others. Interestingly, only 2 members, Minch in a 2003 Legends comic and Yoda, spoke with the distinctive backwards grammar most fans associate with the species, while the rest spoke normally, suggesting Yoda's speech pattern is a personal quirk rather than a species trait. Perhaps most significantly, only Grogu remains alive in the current timeline. He carries the wisdom of Jedi Masters within him and the armor of Mandalorian warriors on his body, bridging two ancient traditions that were enemies for millennia. He proves that even the rarest bloodlines can forge new paths. Din Grogu continues his journey somewhere in the Outer Rim, combining Jedi abilities with Mandalorian training in a way the galaxy has never seen. Master Yoda was, in many ways, a failure. While this is a bold accusation against the Jedi Master, I will give you 3 reasons why. First, Yoda's rigid dogma left the Jedi blind to the dangers around them. By the time of the prequel era, the Republic had grown corrupt, and the Jedi Order had become overly dogmatic. They became increasingly rigid and disconnected from the realities of the galaxy. They clung to rules and rituals, enforcing a lifestyle of emotional suppression and blind adherence to outdated philosophy. The Jedi Code taught that emotion must give way to peace. It warned that attachment was forbidden because attachment breeds jealousy, which is a shadow of greed. Fear, anger, and hatred had to be stripped from a Jedi's heart. The galaxy had changed, but the Jedi had not. Yet even as the Republic decayed, Yoda remained steadfast in this belief that the Jedi's role was to serve it unquestioningly. He embodied the Jedi Council's faith in ancient codes, often ignoring nuance or new evidence. However, Yoda himself acknowledged that neither the Republic nor the Jedi Order was perfect. Despite this awareness, his actions still reflected a deep trust in the Order's traditions, even when those traditions no longer matched the needs of the galaxy. Any deviation from the code was viewed as a failure of faith, not a flaw in doctrine. This rigidity would soon bring grave consequences. The clearest warning came in 42 BBY, when Count Dooku, one of Yoda's own former Padawans, abandoned the Jedi completely. He did so out of disillusionment with corruption in the Galactic Senate and the perceived complacency of the Jedi. While his departure began as a protest against these flaws, he would eventually embrace the dark side after Qui-Gon Jinn's death at the Battle of Naboo in 32 BBY. When one of your most accomplished students walks away citing your own failures, that's not an accident, but a warning. However, Yoda didn't see it that way. The Council, and he among them, treated his departure as a personal failing rather than a signal of systemic decay. Rather than reflecting on the cracks forming in the Jedi's foundation, Yoda stood firm on his belief. He ensured that the same rigid structure remained unchallenged. This pattern of dismissing criticism and doubling down on tradition defined Yoda's entire approach to leadership. Worse still, Yoda failed to foresee Dooku's fall to the dark side. Dooku became Darth Tyrannus in secret, helping orchestrate the Separatist crisis. Meanwhile, the Grand Master of the Jedi Order, the most powerful Force user in the galaxy, remained unaware that his former Padawan had become a Sith Lord. He only discovered the truth when Dooku revealed his dark powers during the Battle of Geonosis. Such an event demonstrated how the Sith had effectively hidden in plain sight. This was not just a failure of perception, but also reflected the limitations of the system Yoda led. The Clone Wars would later expose just how dangerous this inflexibility had become. When the Clone Wars erupted, the Jedi became generals. They became warriors, leading legions of soldiers bred for battle and fighting a war designed by their enemies. They believed they were serving peace, yet they were puppets in a conflict orchestrated by the Sith. Though Yoda acted with good intentions, his adherence to tradition prevented him from seeing how the Sith had turned the Jedi's own principles against them. Second, his suppression of knowledge created even deeper vulnerabilities. The archives grew thicker, yet carefully filtered over the centuries. Holocrons, Sith artifacts, and ancient texts required Council permission and clearance levels. While canon confirms that certain darkside texts and Sith artifacts were restricted to Jedi Masters, there is no direct evidence that Yoda personally removed Sith holocrons from the archives. However, he did advocate caution in studying them. Furthermore, he treated these crucial pieces of knowledge as too dangerous or incomprehensible for minds he deemed weak. His intent may have been noble, but in doing so, he restrained the very curiosity that once defined the Jedi. His students faced the galaxy half blind, while their enemies studied freely. Within the council chambers, even the Masters themselves lacked full information. As a result, the Jedi knew of the Sith only through ancient doctrine. They believed the dark side to be eternal, something that could be defeated through discipline. Master Yoda never considered that understanding darkness might be the only defense against it. When a vision of Order 66 began to surface, Yoda dismissed them, a decision that would cost thousands of Jedi their lives. Early in the Clone Wars, Yoda meditated on Kashyyyk and received an unclear vision through the Force. It showed him Clone Trooper Jekk's emotions shifting from disbelief to an overpowering need to obey some unknown command. The meaning was vague, more feeling than image. Yet even this fragment hinted at something deeply wrong with the clones. Yoda's skepticism about visions prevented him from realizing the true importance of what he had seen. He took no action. He told no one. He didn't investigate the clones or question why the Force would show him this specific future. Instead, he buried the warning and continued leading the Jedi into battle alongside the very soldiers who would eventually execute them. But everything changed when ARC Trooper 5's uncovered physical evidence that could have prevented the massacre. The warnings kept coming. When the Jedi Council learned that Count Dooku had secretly commissioned the clone army, alarm bells should have been deafening. The Sith created your military. The enemy designed the troops you command. Every strategic instinct should have screamed danger, but Yoda vouched for the clones anyway. At his insistence, the Council testified to the clones' loyalty and actively concealed Dooku's role in their creation. Yoda believed the Republic would panic if the truth leaked, so he chose deception over transparency. He chose political stability over the safety of his own order. Then came the inhibitor chips. When ARC Trooper 5's uncovered the truth about control chips implanted in every clone's brain, he brought evidence directly to the Jedi. This mechanism would allow clones to be turned against their Jedi commanders. Fives risked everything to deliver this warning. He died trying to expose the conspiracy. Still, the Council, led by Yoda, accepted the cover story. When Clone Trooper Tup experienced a malfunction that caused him to execute his Jedi general, the Jedi were told it was caused by a virus, not the chips. The Council stressed that the inhibitor chips in every clone's brain were necessary for stability and nothing more. They disregarded Five's warnings about a larger conspiracy and took no steps to remove the chips. Once again, Yoda chose to trust the system over the evidence in front of him. Even after ignoring this evidence, Yoda continued to receive warnings. When he secluded himself on Dagobah seeking answers from the Force, he saw Order 66 again in another vision. The Force was screaming at him and showing him the catastrophic future. Yet neither he nor the Council fully pieced it together in time. The dark side had clouded their vision. Then came the moment Yoda had been warned about, and the consequences were beyond comprehension. When Palpatine issued the command, clones across the galaxy turned on their Jedi commanders in an instant. On Megiddo, clones blasted Ki-Adi-Mundi from behind, cutting him down mid-stride. On Cato Neimoidia, Plo Koon's fighter exploded in the sky, shot down by the pilots who had flown beside him through countless battles. On Seleucami, Stas Ali was vaporized by her own speeder escort. On Felucia, Aayla Secura was surrounded by clones she had fought beside for years, and they executed her without hesitation. Across the galaxy, thousands of Jedi fell in minutes. Masters who had survived years of brutal warfare died in seconds, while Padawans were gunned down before they could even understand what was happening. Even in the Jedi Temple, home to the Order for 1,000 generations, became a slaughterhouse. Darth Vader and clone troopers turned on everyone inside, even the younglings, who were cut down despite looking to the Jedi for protection. Order 66 succeeded beyond Palpatine's wildest dreams. The massacre was total. The efficiency was perfect. Yoda had some warnings, the suspicious origin of the clone army, Fives' claims of a conspiracy, yet neither he nor the Council fully pieced it together in time. The dark side had clouded their vision, and Sidious's plan happened before they could prevent it. As Order 66 unfolded, Darth Sidious bragged to Yoda that he had waited a long time for this moment, and that, at last, the Jedi were no more. And he was right. The Jedi weren't defeated by superior force or overwhelming power. They were destroyed by their own leader's refusal to act on the warnings he received multiple times. Yet perhaps Yoda's most devastating failure came not from what he ignored, but from what he taught. For Yoda, emotion was the root of all downfall. Fear led to anger, anger to hate, and hate to suffering. This teaching, rooted in the Jedi Code, guided the Order for centuries. To him, these weren't just guidelines. They were absolute truths that could never be questioned. But in practice, it stripped the Jedi of what made them human. When Anakin Skywalker came to him in 19 BBY, terrified by visions of Padme dying in childbirth, Yoda's response revealed the fatal flaw in his philosophy. Anakin was desperate. He was seeing the woman he loved dying, and he needed guidance on how to save her while staying true to Jedi principles. But Yoda offered no empathy, no understanding, and no acknowledgement that Anakin's fears might be valid. Instead, he warned Anakin that he must be careful when sensing the future, because the fear of loss is a path to the dark side. He told Anakin to train himself to let go of everything he feared to lose. It was the emotional equivalent of leaving someone alone in their darkest moment. Anakin wasn't asking Yoda to help him avoid attachment. He was asking for help protecting someone he loved. And Yoda told him to accept her death before it even happened. His cold response would push Anakin directly into the arms of a Sith Lord. This advice wasn't just unhelpful, it was actively destructive. Yoda's uncompromising stance left Anakin completely isolated. He had nowhere else to turn within the Jedi Order. No one would help him. No one would even acknowledge that his fears were legitimate. So, Anakin turned to the only person who offered him answers, Palpatine. The Sith Lord recognized Anakin's desperation and exploited it perfectly. He offered Anakin hope through dark-side power, claiming it could save those he loved from death. He gave Anakin what Yoda refused to provide, a path forward that didn't require him to abandon everyone he cared about. And when Anakin stood at the crossroads between light and dark, he remembered Yoda's cold dismissal and chose Palpatine's false promises instead. The result was immediate and far-reaching. Anakin knelt before Palpatine and became Darth Vader. He led the clone assault on the Jedi Temple, cutting down Jedi he had fought beside during the Clone Wars. He murdered younglings who looked to him for protection. He traveled to Mustafar and slaughtered the Separatist leadership, tying up Palpatine's loose ends. And when Obi-Wan confronted him, Anakin had become so consumed by the dark side that he tried to kill his own master and closest friend. Padme died anyway. The very thing Anakin fell to the dark side to prevent happened regardless, and Vader spent the next 2 decades as Palpatine's enforcer, hunting down the surviving Jedi and crushing any spark of rebellion across the galaxy. Every atrocity Vader committed, every Jedi he hunted, every innocent life he destroyed traces back to that moment when Yoda told Anakin to let go instead of offering real help. The Jedi Code teaches that attachment leads to the dark side. Anakin's fall seemed to prove this, but it wasn't the attachment itself that corrupted him. It was the Jedi Order's refusal to acknowledge attachment as part of being human. Yoda's doctrine created a trap: feel nothing or fall to darkness. There was no middle ground, no attachments, no understanding that love itself could be a source of strength. Despite this tragedy, Master Yoda learned nothing. 20 years later, Luke Skywalker arrived on Dagobah with the same passionate nature as his father. Yoda immediately labeled Luke impatient, reckless, and too much like Anakin. The Jedi Master tried to compress decades worth of training into weeks in Luke, all while concealing crucial information from him, the true identity of Darth Vader. In the middle of training, Luke experienced visions of his friends suffering. When he wanted to take action, history repeated itself exactly. Yoda demanded that he abandon them so he could complete his training. The same cold doctrine that drove Anakin to darkness now pushed Luke toward the same cliff. Yet Luke refused. He left Dagobah against Yoda's wishes. He went to save his friends. And later, when he faced Darth Vader on the second Death Star, he made a choice that defied everything Yoda had taught him. He threw away his lightsaber and refused to kill his father. That choice, the one Yoda told him not to make, saved Anakin Skywalker. and destroyed the Sith. Luke's love for his father redeemed Vader. His loyalty to his friends inspired the rebellion. His emotional connections became the foundation of a new Jedi Order that would surpass the old. All the traits Yoda saw as weaknesses in his students were what made Luke successful in defeating the Empire. Only Luke's rejection of Yoda's philosophy, his choice of compassion over detachment, ultimately brought balance to the Force. In the end, Yoda never understood that attachment could be a Jedi's strength. He spent 900 years perfecting a teaching philosophy that created its own failures. He produced technically skilled warriors who crumbled under emotional pressure. He trained powerful Force users who turned to darkness rather than face their own feelings. Yoda's failures weren't accidents. It was his own wisdom that doomed the very galaxy he'd been saving for centuries. The galaxy paid the price. The Republic fell while the Empire rose. Yoda spent decades hiding on Dagobah instead of taking responsibility for his role in the catastrophe. The final proof that Yoda's way was wrong came when Luke Skywalker saved the galaxy by practicing compassion. Attachment redeemed Vader. Love destroyed the Emperor. What Yoda said would lead to darkness became the light that saved everyone. The question of whether Yoda studied the dark side has a definitive answer rooted in how fallen Jedi reinterpret their past. The evidence spans both legends and canon sources across 63 years, revealing how memory becomes distorted when an individual's entire worldview collapses. Count Dooku's private speculation reveals a belief based on a misunderstanding. The Legends novel Labyrinth of Evil by James Luceno documents the Sith Lord's thoughts during the Clone Wars. The passage describes his surprise at Geonosis, where Yoda's easy handling of Sith lightning caught him off guard. This surprise made Dooku wonder whether his former master had delved into the dark arts across 800 years, if only to familiarize himself with his perceived enemy. The specific phrasing matters considerably. Dooku frames this as wondering, not knowing, showing speculation rather than certainty. He imagines Yoda studying darkness to understand enemies, not embracing it for power. But something planted this dangerous idea in Dooku's mind decades earlier. A single conversation 63 years before the Clone Wars provided the foundation for this misinterpretation. The Legends novel Yoda Dark Rendezvous by Sean Stewart reveals the crucial moment through flashback. Young Dooku sat with Yoda beside the ornamental pond in the Jedi Temple Gardens one evening, contemplating his upcoming departure for his first solo mission. He felt unusually heavy that night, as if realizing for the first time how easy it would be to sink into the Force's dark depths. Their philosophical discussion turned to the nature of the Force itself. Dooku spoke about how the Force runs through all life, high and low, great and small, light and dark. He stopped awkwardly after mentioning light, but Yoda finished the thought for him. The ancient master acknowledged that he had felt the touch of the dark across his long life, asking what mistakes a soul as great as his could make in 800 years. When the shocked apprentice could only stare, Yoda revealed his answer through laughter and a poke of his cane. Many mistakes, he explained, before growing serious with a warning that the dark side is mightiest in the mighty. This admission greatly altered everything the young Jedi understood about his master. The Grand Master of the Jedi Order had just acknowledged feeling the touch of darkness directly, not merely resisting temptation from a distance. Yoda explained that the Force includes darkness as part of existence, but added the crucial warning that his apprentice should not study it too closely, though Jedi must know it exists. That final phrase about necessary knowledge versus dangerous obsession contained the seed of everything that would follow. However, young Dooku's earlier training had already made him vulnerable to misunderstanding these words. The canon audio drama, Dooku, Jedi Lost, by Cavan Scott, reveals critical context about influences on the young initiate. During his training, Dooku encountered Jedi Master Lene Kostana, who believed the Order must actively prepare for potential Sith threats. Kostana searched for Sith relics scattered across the galaxy and studied forbidden materials like the bestiary of Darth Kaldoth, despite the Council's disapproval. Though she would later choose Dooku's friend Sifo Dyas as her Padawan while Yoda selected Dooku, her unusual approach left a lasting impression. She argued that younglings should be trained to identify and combat dark side artifacts, believing the Jedi were dangerously unprepared. Though the Council dismissed these concerns as unnecessary, considering her methods too close to dangerous territory, this exposure established a dangerous belief in Dooku's mind. Dedicated Jedi could apparently study darkness if it served a greater purpose. He watched Kastana break Council rules to research the enemy, learning that defeating evil sometimes required understanding it deeply. Years later, when Yoda acknowledged feeling darkness across 8 centuries and stated that Jedi must know it, the combination created a pattern. Perhaps exceptional individuals could walk closer to darkness than others without falling. Written evidence from Dooku's youth reveals this pattern developing over time. The in-universe training manual, The Jedi Path, contains handwritten annotations from both Yoda and young Dooku that document this dangerous progression. Yoda reviewed the book around 115 BBY, and Dooku received it from his master, Thame Cerulean, owning it from approximately 89 to 82 BBY. The young Padawan read Yoda's notes throughout his training, absorbing every word. On a page discussing the Sith's supposed defeat after the Battle of Ruusan, Yoda had written a marginal note acknowledging that he sometimes sensed darkness and that Jedi must remain vigilant. Directly below this, young Dooku added his own observation about idle rumors suggesting the Sith survived under the rule of 2, 1 master and 1 apprentice. Another page discussed holocrons in the Jedi archives, and Dooku noted that his classmate had stolen a Sith holocron temporarily, observing that Jedi information resources were not as secure as the Council believed. He added another note questioning whether Sith holocrons revealed their secrets to just anyone, implying that certain individuals could access them. These annotations reveal a young Padawan tracking patterns of those who engaged with dark-side materials. To someone already fascinated by forbidden knowledge, these pieces suggested that exceptional Jedi could engage with darkness more directly than others. Years of growing doubt would twist these memories into permission to abandon everything the Jedi stood for. Dooku grew increasingly troubled by what he perceived as corruption throughout the Jedi Order and the Republic it served. He believed the Jedi had become tools of a broken government, enforcing laws that perpetuated injustice rather than preventing it. Eventually, he left the Order entirely, returning to his homeworld Sereno to claim his family title as Count. From there, he fell to the dark side, becoming Darth Tyrannus, apprentice to Darth Sidious. From this new position as a Sith Lord, having crossed every line Yoda warned about, the fallen Jedi reconsidered those old conversations. The memory of Yoda acknowledging darkness transformed in his mind. Perhaps Yoda had done more than simply feel the dark side across 8 centuries. Perhaps he had studied it deliberately, like Kostana studied artifacts, and that hidden research explained his extraordinary wisdom. This reinterpretation shows how perspective alters memory. What Yoda actually taught was vigilance and honest self-awareness. What Dooku now remembered was permission and precedent. The speculation crystallized during the Clone Wars after a specific encounter triggered the memory. Labyrinth of Evil documents Dooku's thoughts, forming years after his fall. During the battle on Geonosis, Dooku fought his former master directly, hurling Sith lightning at the ancient Jedi. Yoda deflected the attack with surprising ease, parrying the dark side technique as if he had trained specifically to counter it. This unexpected skill planted a question in Dooku's mind. The text states that Yoda's easy handling of Sith lightning made Dooku wonder whether the Jedi Master had delved into the dark arts across his 800 years, if only as a means of familiarizing himself with his perceived enemy. The passage then connects this speculation to a more recent memory. Dooku recalled that on Vajun only months earlier, Yoda had admitted carrying a darkness within himself. This statement became the confirmation Dooku needed. In his mind, carrying darkness within meant studying dark techniques, not simply experiencing the internal struggle every Force user faces. The fallen apprentice mistook feeling darkness for studying it, turning self-awareness into proof of training. Yet, when master and former student finally confronted each other face to face, Dooku never spoke this accusation aloud. If Dooku truly believed Yoda had intentionally studied the dark side like Kostana researched Sith artifacts, this moment offered the perfect opportunity to expose that hypocrisy. He could have accused his master of following the same path he now condemned. He could have pointed out that Yoda's wisdom came from the same forbidden study Dooku now practiced openly. However, he said nothing of the sort. Their conversation remained focused on philosophy and competing views of the Force. Dooku argued that embracing both light and dark represented true balance. On the other hand, Yoda rejected this interpretation completely. Neither spoke of Yoda personally engaging with darkness beyond acknowledging its existence. The speculation remained locked entirely in Dooku's private thoughts, never voiced to anyone. This silence reveals something crucial about the belief itself. The wondering appears only in his mind in Labyrinth of Evil, framed with uncertainty, used to justify his choices when no one else could hear. Even Dooku himself remained unsure. He wondered whether it might be true. He believed it could explain Yoda's extraordinary abilities. He never claimed it as definite knowledge because he possessed no actual evidence. The word perhaps that prefaced his speculation betrayed the absence of proof. Canon sources prove Dooku's interpretation wrong from an entirely different angle. The Canon Clone Wars animated series episode Sacrifice documents Yoda's spiritual journey to learn the secret of maintaining consciousness after death. During this quest, the dark side itself actively attempted to corrupt him through visions. Darth Sidious and Dooku used ancient Sith techniques to project their power across the galaxy, targeting Yoda specifically. They offered him forbidden knowledge directly, promising to reveal the identity of the Sith Lord in exchange for giving in to darkness. They tempted him with power, suggesting he could gain strength beyond imagination by accepting their teachings. Without hesitation, Yoda rejected every offer. He stated plainly that the Sith had nothing to show him, refusing to engage with their promises. In the final test, they presented him with a terrible choice through vision, offering him the chance to learn who the Sith Lord was in exchange for allowing Anakin Skywalker to perish. Regardless, Yoda responded that he would not be tempted, and that he was ready to sacrifice everything rather than accept knowledge purchased through darkness. Sidious concluded that they had failed to break Yoda's will, acknowledging that his strength proved too great for corruption. This episode demonstrates Yoda facing explicit offers of dark side knowledge and consistently refusing them. This was not a philosophical discussion about whether darkness exists. It was a direct temptation with specific techniques and information, which Yoda rejected. The contrast with Dooku's speculation could not be clearer. The fallen Jedi imagined Yoda studying darkness in secret. Instead, his former master refused it even when offered directly. The distinction between what Yoda taught and what Dooku heard reveals where the misunderstanding occurred. Yoda acknowledged that darkness exists as part of reality. He admitted feeling its pull across 8 centuries. He explained making mistakes during that time, showing honest self-awareness rather than claiming perfection. He warned that Force users must know that darkness exists, meaning they should understand its presence and nature, not that they should train in dark techniques. He specifically cautioned against studying it too closely, establishing a clear boundary between necessary awareness and dangerous obsession. This teaching described the internal struggle every Force-sensitive individual faces throughout life. Darkness pulls constantly at those connected to the Force. The challenge lies not in avoiding knowledge that darkness exists, but in consistently choosing light despite feeling that pull. Yoda's wisdom came from 8 centuries of making that choice repeatedly, from experiencing darkness and refusing to embrace it day after day, decade after decade, century after century. Dooku interpreted this entirely differently because he approached the question from a Sith perspective. The Sith pursue power through intentional study of darkness. They learn techniques that channel negative emotions. They research methods to dominate others through Force abilities. They seek knowledge that increases personal strength regardless of moral cost. Dooku assumed his master must have followed a similar path to achieve such wisdom, because that framework was the only one he understood after his fall. This assumption reflects Sith thinking, where power comes from accumulating forbidden knowledge and mastering dangerous techniques. Jedi wisdom operates on different principles. It comes from experience rather than study, from mistakes rather than research, from choosing correctly rather than knowing more. Yoda's understanding of darkness came from feeling it constantly and rejecting it consistently, not from practicing dark abilities or researching Sith methods. The fallen apprentice could not grasp this distinction because his own pursuit of power depended on studying what the Jedi refused to practice. The truth about what Yoda actually did stands in complete opposition to Dooku's speculation. Yoda felt the touch of darkness across 800 years of life. He chose the light every single time that choice presented itself. He made mistakes, as all living beings do, but learned from them and continued choosing correctly. He acknowledged that darkness exists within everyone because honesty about internal struggles proves crucial for avoiding corruption. He warned his apprentice against studying darkness too closely because he understood the danger inherent in fascination with forbidden knowledge. None of this describes studying dark side techniques. It describes self-awareness, vigilance, and constant choice. The fallen apprentice, viewing these teachings through the lens of his own corruption, reinterpreted honest acknowledgement as evidence of secret training. Yet every source demonstrates this reinterpretation was false. Dooku's fall came from believing exceptional individuals could study darkness without succumbing to it. The difference between master and fallen apprentice was not that one studied darkness while the other abstained. The difference was that one chose light consistently across 9 centuries, while the other chose power, then constructed a narrative suggesting his master had walked a similar path to justify that choice. Dooku's speculation reveals more about his own need for validation than about Yoda's actual practices. It demonstrates how fallen Jedi reinterpret their past to make their betrayal seem less catastrophic, transforming their master's honest teachings about struggle into permission for forbidden study. But the Count's misunderstanding was not the only consequence of that garden conversation. The fallen apprentice's entire descent from promising Jedi to Sith Lord was shaped by how he twisted his master's teachings. The truth about why Darth Vader never hunted Yoda after Order 66 reveals something unexpected about how the Empire actually worked. Drawing from both canon and legend sources, 5 key reasons explain why the most dangerous Jedi Master in the galaxy remained completely untouched while Vader spent decades as the Emperor's enforcer. First, the Empire never made Jedi hunting a priority, and Palpatine stated this position explicitly. In Legends continuity, specifically James Luceno's novel Dark Lord: The Rise of Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine made his view clear during conversations with Vader in the weeks following Order 66. The Emperor communicated to his apprentice that the Jedi meant nothing to the Empire. Surviving Jedi like Yoda and Obi-Wan were not exceptions to any rule. Palpatine was certain that dozens of Jedi escaped with their lives, and Vader would eventually have chances to eliminate many of them during his missions. However, the critical point was that their order had been crushed. Palpatine viewed the survivors hiding on remote worlds as having humbled themselves before the Sith. He wanted them to stay hidden, seeing their exile as ongoing punishment for 1,000 years of arrogance. This represented strategic contempt rather than mercy or oversight. While scattered Jedi hid across the galaxy, the Empire's true focus revealed something far more ambitious. The novel reveals what actually occupied the Empire's attention: controlling the Senate, suppressing political dissent, building the Imperial military, and constructing the Death Star in complete secrecy. The Empire faced too few battle groups to deploy everywhere: rogue paramilitary groups using abandoned Separatist weapons and construction projects falling behind schedule. Against this backdrop, the scattered Jedi barely registered as a concern. The Emperor's orders to Vader regarding the Jedi were explicitly reactive rather than proactive. Palpatine instructed him that he could destroy any Jedi he came across during the course of his missions. The key distinction was that this phrase meant coming across them by chance. Jedi hunting was opportunistic, something to do if the situation presented itself, rather than a systematic campaign. By the novel's end, when Palpatine considered threats that needed to be rooted out, Jedi were not even mentioned. The assessment was clear: the Jedi were incidental to Vader's actual purpose. In canon continuity, the Marvel comic series Darth Vader: Dark Lord of the Sith shows the same pattern. Palpatine managed targets strategically, distinguishing between Jedi who mattered and those who did not. Even weak Jedi could be important if they possessed valuable knowledge. However, the general population of survivors scattered across the galaxy was not worth the organized hunt. Series like Star Wars Rebels demonstrates that the Empire prioritized threats based on immediate danger. A rogue Jedi like Kanan Jarrus recruiting survivors demanded attention, while a hidden Jedi Master in deep exile did not. What becomes clear across both continuities is that the Empire had far bigger concerns. Building the Death Star required massive labor, political control demanded constant attention, and the military needed expansion and modernization. With this in mind, finding Yoda would have meant diverting resources from these critical objectives to search potentially thousands of worlds for someone who had already removed himself from relevance. Second, Vader's actual role in the Empire was a political enforcer rather than a Jedi hunter, and his missions prove this beyond question. In the Legends continuity, Darth Vader's official position was Emperor's emissary. His function was liaison with regional governors and the Imperial Navy. The novel describes his role precisely. He wielded not real power, but merely the execution of power. He was not the swordmaster so much as the weapon itself. The missions Vader undertook in the first weeks and months after Order 66 demonstrate this clearly. His first major assignment sent him to Murkana with explicit orders to punish clone troopers who had disobeyed Order 66. The Emperor made his priorities clear when he informed Vader that he was not worried about the Jedi, but wanted those clone troopers punished. The objective was disciplining the military rather than hunting Force users. When Vader encountered Jedi survivors during this mission, including Masters Roan Shrine and Bol Chatak, the encounters were completely accidental. His later assignments sent him to Alderaan to retrieve Senator Fang Zar, a political dissident who had fled Coruscant after questioning by Internal Security Bureau officers. The objective involved political intimidation, specifically demonstrating consequences for senators who challenged Palpatine's authority. Bail Organa had granted Zar refuge at the royal palace, unaware that Imperial forces had been instructed to keep the senator on Coruscant. When Vader arrived with his team of stormtroopers, the situation escalated quickly. Smugglers hired by the late crime boss Cash Garrelin were attempting to retrieve Zar from the palace grounds. During the operation, Shrine appeared, helping the senator escape while Vader confronted palace security forces, and massive crowds of protesters gathered outside. The mission ended in calculated action that revealed Vader's true priorities. Vader hurled his ignited lightsaber through the air above the crowd, the crimson blades spinning in a deadly arc. The weapon struck Fang Zar first, tearing a deep wound across his upper chest and nearly taking his head. The blade continued its path, striking Shrine's mother, Jula, across the back before returning to Vader's hand. Zar passed away on the landing platform, while Jula survived but was gravely wounded. The encounter proved once again that meeting Jedi during missions happened by accident rather than by design. Vader's focus remained on the political target throughout. Shrine's intervention was unexpected, and Vader did not attempt to pursue the Jedi afterward. The third major operation, the invasion of Kashyyyk, revealed the Empire's true priorities and the merciless efficiency of its methods. The primary objective had nothing to do with Jedi at all. Moff Wilhuf Tarkin approached Vader with a proposition that would benefit both of them. Tarkin supervised construction of the Emperor's secret weapon, a battle station already far behind schedule. The project faced engineering problems, contractor delays, and most critically, a severe shortage of skilled workers. The sharp-featured Moff explained his plan clearly. Vader's hunt for Jedi could serve a larger purpose. If he led an operation to capture insurgent Jedi, and if those Jedi happened to be harbored by Wookies, then the Wookies could be exposed as rebels against the Empire. Vader grasped the strategy immediately. He could eliminate scattered Jedi while also providing Tarkin with exactly what the secret project needed. When intelligence detected Jedi survivors on Kashyyyk, Imperial forces tracked their movements but intentionally allowed their transport through checkpoint cordons. Their presence provided perfect justification for what came next. The invasion proceeded with overwhelming force. Orbital bombardment preceded massive ground assaults. Victory-class Star Destroyers descended from orbit while gunships and troop carriers swept through the forests. The operation successfully captured 200,000 Wookiees who were placed in containment camps on the Wawat Archipelago. Tarkin later reported the results to the Emperor, confirming he would accommodate twice that number if needed. Palpatine granted permission to transport the slaves to the weapon, then emphasized the need for absolute secrecy. Tarkin was ordered to inform the regional governor of activities on Kashyyyk, but to make no mention of the Wookiees' final destination. All three operations proved that meeting the Jedi was either by accident or used as a cover for other Imperial objectives. Vader was deployed as an instrument of Imperial political and military power, rather than as a specialized Jedi hunter. When he did encounter Jedi during these missions, his performance revealed another problem. He was not particularly effective against skilled opponents. This leads us to the third reason. Vader was physically and psychologically incapable of confronting someone as powerful as Yoda. In the Legends continuity, Vader's new body created severe limitations. The suit designed by Palpatine restricted his movement and caused constant pain. During his early missions, Vader questioned whether losing his limbs meant losing strength in the Force as well. His fighting style became clumsy and stiff compared to his former abilities. He defeated Jedi through brute strength and size rather than skill or finesse. During his duel with Bol Chetak on Morkana, an undistinguished Jedi Knight, Vader's fighting style revealed both his limitations and his overwhelming advantages. His technique was clumsy compared to what he had been capable of as Anakin Skywalker. His strikes were mostly vertical, lacking the grace and variety he had once displayed. He appeared to lack a style of his own, executing moves stiffly rather than with the fluid precision of a true master. However, Vader compensated for poor technique with raw power. He stood a full head taller than Chetak and used incredible strength to beat her into submission. The Zabrak Jedi was all grace and speed, working her way inside his guard with broad circular movements. Her lightsaber seemed an extension of her body, yet Vader's sheer power overwhelmed her defensive advantages. He did not need a refined technique when he could simply hammer through her guard with brute force. Chetak managed to inflict a wound to his forearm, but the injury revealed the extent of Vader's transformation. Instead of blood, sparks and smoke fountained from the injury. The strike confirmed what she had suspected. Much of Vader was machine rather than flesh. The revelation did not save her. With a final flick of his blade, Vader defeated her. The fight demonstrated that Vader, in his new form, defeated Jedi through size, strength, and determination, rather than skill or finesse. Against truly powerful opponents, particularly masters of Yoda's caliber, these advantages would prove insufficient. Palpatine himself acknowledged this reality, remarking that Vader should imagine what Yoda might have done to him. Yoda had confronted Palpatine in the Senate chamber and forced the Emperor to fight seriously. Vader, damaged and diminished, stood no chance against the Jedi Master. However, the physical limitations were not the most important barrier. The novel reveals that Vader's real weaknesses were psychological rather than physical. He was consumed by grief, anger, and self-pity during this period. He questioned his place in the New Order, feeling like Palpatine's servant rather than a true Sith Lord. The text describes him as distracted and unstable, barely holding himself together. The psychological barrier went deeper than simple emotional turmoil. Qui-Gon Jinn, speaking to Obi-Wan as a Force ghost, explained that the core of Anakin that resides in Vader understands that Tatooine is the source of nearly everything causing him pain. Vader would never set foot on Tatooine out of fear of reawakening Anakin. This principle applies to more than just one planet. Confronting Yoda, the living embodiment of everything the Jedi Order represented, would force the same unbearable confrontation. The novel makes clear that some residue of Anakin continued to plague Vader, like pain from a phantom limb. Hunting down Yoda would risk the psychological stability Vader desperately needed to function in his new role. By the novel's conclusion, Vader had achieved a breakthrough transformation after defeating Shrine. The text describes it as crossing some invisible threshold to a new world. However, his new priority was not hunting Jedi. Instead, he looked forward to a time when he could find an apprentice of his own, and together with that one, topple Darth Sidious from his throne. His actual focus was on eventually overthrowing his master. In this context, scattered Jedi became irrelevant. They were no different from others who would interfere with his and Sidious's realm. In canon continuity, the comics Darth Vader, show Palpatine establishing control over his apprentice from the very first day. Immediately after learning that Padme had passed away, Vader raged at his master. Palpatine's response involved both physical demonstration and explicit threat. He tormented Vader with Force lightning, demanding that he defend himself while Vader had no lightsaber. When Vader instinctively reached out with the Force, Palpatine warned him that if he touched the Emperor with the Force again, he would finish what Kenobi could not. This established how their relationship would function from that point forward. The suit's design kept Vader vulnerable, meaning Palpatine could hurt him whenever he wanted, and the Emperor made this threat perfectly clear. Vader learned immediately that disobedience meant consequences. The Emperor also addressed Vader's desire for revenge. Reading his apprentice's thoughts, Palpatine instructed him to set such feelings aside because personal revenge mattered less than the Empire's needs. From day one, Vader could not pursue targets based on his own desires. He could only act on Imperial priorities as defined by his master. Fourth, a sophisticated control system prevented Vader from taking any independent action, including hunting Yoda. The most revealing evidence about this control system comes from Legends continuity, specifically Sean Stewart's novel Yoda: Dark Rendezvous, which shows how Emperor Palpatine controlled his apprentices. The book reveals a system designed to prevent exactly the kind of independent action that hunting Yoda would represent. The novel demonstrates this through Count Dooku's experience on Vajun. Dooku had installed a red button on his desk connected to a missile in orbit, programmed to destroy his own location. He called it his last card to play. When Palpatine called, Dooku's hand shook as he touched it. When the Emperor's presence grew more threatening, sweat ran freely down the Count's face. Even with Yoda at his mercy during their confrontation on Vajun, Dooku could not act freely because he was paralyzed by fear of his master discovering any unauthorized action. The novel also reveals conversations between Ventress and Dooku that expose the dangers of the Sith apprentice system. Ventress warned the Count directly about the Emperor's intentions, suggesting that Palpatine would use him up. She questioned what would happen when Dooku became the most dangerous being left standing, implying that success itself became dangerous under Palpatine's rule. The novel makes clear through these exchanges that Sith apprentices operated under constant threat, unable to take independent action without risking their master's wrath. The novel further demonstrates how Palpatine used Yoda's disappearance for political gain. When news reports claimed Yoda was gone after Ventress destroyed his decoy ship, Mace Windu asked Palpatine to correct the record. The Chancellor refused, citing bureaucratic procedures and the need for verification. Meanwhile, Senator Orn Free-Taa used Yoda's apparent fate to call for massive new security forces answering directly to the Chancellor's office. Padme Amidala recognized what was happening. Control over Republic security was shifting from the professional Jedi Order to the emotional, politicized Senate. Palpatine gained emergency powers directly because of Yoda's absence. The novel's ending shows what happened to apprentices in this system. Count Dooku ended up alone on a distant planet, despite all his power and success. The text repeats the word like a mantra. Despite everything he had achieved, the Count was alone. This was the fate of Sith apprentices under Palpatine's control. They might gain power and win battles, but they remained isolated, manipulated, and ultimately disposable. Vader remembered eliminating Dooku at Palpatine's command, making him realize that even total obedience and success led to betrayal when the apprentice was no longer needed. The novel also includes a vision where Dooku glimpses what would happen if Yoda ever turned to the dark side. During their confrontation, holomonitors cast strange shadows across Yoda's face. In that moment, Yoda appeared identical to Darth Sidious. The vision revealed something specific and horrifying. Yoda possessed 9 centuries of Force mastery. No Sith Lord, not even Sidious, had lived long enough to accumulate that knowledge and skill. If all that power served darkness instead of light, it would create a being beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The vision terrified Dooku completely. In a flash, he understood how foolish his plan was. If Yoda walked that path, Sidious himself would be destroyed. In canon continuity, the comics show the same control system through Vader's early experiences. The series Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith shows Palpatine managing Jedi targets strategically rather than eliminating them without strategy. When discussing the elderly Jedi archivist Jocasta Nu, Palpatine explained that despite her being weak in the Force and barely competent with a lightsaber, she could end everything they were trying to do because of her knowledge. Palpatine's orders regarding Jocasta revealed his management philosophy. He informed Vader that he sensed his eagerness and that the idea of fighting another Jedi called to him. However, Vader needed to set these desires aside. This was not a one-time instruction. The comics show Palpatine giving this command repeatedly. When Vader failed the mission and Jocasta passed away instead of being captured alive, Palpatine's response was ominous. He simply acknowledged the failure as regrettable, then demanded that Vader return immediately to provide a full report. The Emperor wanted to hear the story in complete detail. This was an interrogation masked as a debriefing. Vader had to lie about the circumstances, claiming Jocasta was careless during an escape attempt. Even then, the implied threat hung over the conversation. Failure had consequences, even when the failure was accidental. The comics also show Palpatine explaining his philosophy of emotional control directly to Vader. He admits that without the Jedi, Vader had almost no worthy opponents left. This emptiness could become a problem. Palpatine admitted he felt the same emotions, hate and contempt for lesser beings. These emotions opened doors to dark side power. However, he offered a warning about falling too deep. When that happened, the relationship turned. The Sith became a tool, and the emotions became the masters. Palpatine did not want Vader attacking targets based purely on emotion. He wanted Vader's actions to focus on strategic objectives. Fifth, Yoda held special value to Palpatine, making hunting him a strategic mistake. Both continuities show that the ancient Jedi Master was more useful alive and hidden than gone and martyred. In Legends, Palpatine used Yoda's status as a control mechanism for apprentices, a justification for emergency powers, and insurance against apprentice rebellion. The most powerful Jedi Master alive could be discovered and deployed if Vader ever rebelled. Having Yoda's status unknown served the Empire better than confirming his fate. In canon, the pattern of strategic Jedi management shows that Palpatine distinguished between Jedi based on their value. Some Jedi needed to be captured alive for information, others could be eliminated on sight, and some were not worth pursuing at all. Yoda fell into the category of enemies more useful left alone. His self-imposed exile had already neutralized his influence and wisdom. Finding him would require massive resource investment for minimal return. His presence on an unknown world posed no active threat to Imperial operations. The complete answer reveals that neither the Empire nor Vader himself had any reason to hunt Yoda. Imperial policy treated scattered Jedi as a low priority because their order was already crushed. Vader's role as political enforcer rather than Jedi hunter, with his missions focused on punishing disobedient troops, intimidating senators, and securing labor for the Death Star. The control system made independent action impossible because Palpatine maintained strict control over his apprentices through fear and strategic manipulation. Yoda alive served the Emperor's purposes better than gone, functioning as a tool for testing apprentices, justification for emergency powers, and insurance against rebellion. Vader's damaged body and tortured mind made confronting Yoda physically impossible and psychologically unbearable. The question assumes hunting Yoda was natural or expected, but the evidence shows it was neither. Vader never hunted Yoda for the same reason he never attacked Coruscant or challenged the Emperor directly during this period. It violated every rule of his existence as a Sith apprentice and would have ended in his destruction. The real story is not about a hunt that failed to happen. It is about an empire so completely victorious that hunting its enemies became unnecessary.